Hello guys. Welcome to Soul Fiction. So in this video, we will see the what if Naruto became the Lord of Dragon Monarch from solo leveling. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's dive into the story. Chapter 1. The Black Scales emerge, late evening, Naruto's apartment. The amber glow of a single lamp lit the cramped living room, throwing flickering shadows onto the walls. Naruto Uzumaki sat cross-legged on his ragged couch, staring at his own hands. For a moment, he could swear he saw scales dark and glinting rippling under his skin. Heart-pounding, he shut his eyes. He'd returned to Konoha a few weeks ago, a hero of the Fourth Great Ninja War. Villagers waved, chanted his name, and greeted him like the savior he was. But this was a new kind of power rising within him, one that made the Kyuubi's chakra feel almost docile in comparison. Something was changing, and a strange voice kept echoing at the edge of his consciousness. "Behold, the new monarch." Naruto's head snapped up. "Who's there?" he muttered into the darkness. Silence answered. He exhaled, pressing his palm to his forehead. "I gotta get some sleep." Yet his body still hummed with energy and unfamiliar, draconic aura coiling restlessly in his gut. He shook off the feeling, eventually dragging himself to bed. The moment he sank onto his pillow, his eyelids felt like lead. Nightmare. Unknown battlefield. He was somewhere else, locked in swirling mist and howling winds. A massive silhouette towered before him. A dragon easily the size of Gamabunta roared, flames billowing from its jaws, shattering the ground beneath. Naruto's heart hammered. He took a single step forward. The dragon lunged, half phasing with the darkness behind it. "Little fox, merge with me," the voice pounded in his skull. Naruto clenched his fists. "What do you want?" The sky erupted with crimson lightning, thunder rattling the world. Fire tore through the heavens. And then he saw them, countless dragons prowling the edges of the battlefield. Each one turned its head toward him, glowing eyes fixated in silent, predatory reverence. A single black scale materialized on Naruto's right forearm. It burned like a live coal. He bit back a scream. Early morning, Naruto's bedroom. Naruto jolted awake, drenched in sweat. His comforter lay on the floor. Dawn's cool light poured through his window. Panting, he pressed a hand to his chest, expecting to feel the scorching mark from his dream. His skin was smooth. No scale. He swallowed, trembling. What the hell? His reflection in the bedside mirror looked the same. Spiky blonde hair, whisker marks, bright blue eyes. But he couldn't forget the sensation of that scale. It felt so real. Shaking his head, Naruto got up and dressed, throwing on his familiar orange and black jacket. Maybe it was just war trauma. Maybe this was a leftover effect from fusing with the Kyuubi. Or maybe some deeper, unsettling part of him whispered this was something else entirely. Morning. Ichiraku ramen. By the time he reached Ichiraku's, the sun was up and the village buzzed with everyday life. The old ramen stand's tarp rustled in the gentle breeze. Naruto ducked under it and plopped onto a stool, the comforting scent of miso broth calming his senses. "Morning, old man Tucci," he called, trying for a bright grin. Tucci's face lit up. "Naruto, it's been too long, the usual?" "You know it," Naruto said, rubbing his hands together. Despite his nightmares, he found himself starving. "Gimme two, scratch that 3 bowls." He heard a soft giggle behind him and turned to see Sakura Haruno slipping onto the seat next to him. She let her hair grow out a little, and it framed her face elegantly. "Eating so much in the morning, Naruto?" Sakura teased, resting her elbows on the counter. "Though I guess some things never change." He shrugged, forcing a laugh. "Between training and all the missions, I gotta keep my energy up." Sakura's gentle smile faded slightly. "Are you sleeping okay? You look tired. I mean, more than usual." For a second, Naruto hesitated. He considered telling her about the nightmares, the bizarre sense of another presence in his head. Instead, he plastered on a casual grin. "Just a lot on my mind. Nothing big." Sakura fiddled with her gloves, clearly unconvinced but letting it drop. They chatted about random stuff, the reconstruction of the village post-war, new missions from the Hokage. When Tucci served them, Naruto devoured his ramen with gusto, pushing aside all thoughts of dragons and scales. But every so often, A faint echo hummed through his mind, like a distant roar calling out. Late morning, Hokage's office, Konoha's administrative building, bustled with shinobi and scribes hurrying about. Paperwork from the war still piled high. Tsunade, having reassumed her duties as Hokage, temporarily was behind her desk, pinching the bridge of her nose. In front of her stood Kakashi, arms folded, silver hair as unruly as ever. Naruto and Sakura arrived just in time to catch the tail end of their conversation. Some strange fluctuations near the outskirts, Kakashi was saying. We need a team to investigate. Then do it, Tsunade said. We can't afford to ignore anomalies right now. Kakashi's eye crinkled when he noticed Naruto. Ah, speak of the devil. Naruto, Sakura, perfect timing. Tsunade looked at Naruto, and for a moment her gaze sharpened, as though she saw something unusual in him. You're just who I wanted to see. She tapped the papers on her desk. There's been an odd reading of chakra in the forest north of the village. We want you two to check it out. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Odd reading? Like what? Tsunade shrugged. I don't have the specifics. It's chaotic. Some sensors say it's not typical shinobi chakra, more like an unearthly presence. Something inside Naruto tensed. He forced an easy grin. We'll take care of it, no problem. Right, Sakura? Sakura nodded, though concern flashed in her eyes. Understood. Tsunade offered them a curt nod. Report back ASAP. If you see anything dangerous, do not engage alone. Her gaze lingered on Naruto. That goes double for you. Naruto laughed it off, but deep down, he wondered if Tsunade sensed whatever was growing inside him. Noon. Forest north of Konoha, tall pines and thick underbrush dominated the landscape. Sunlight filtered through the canopy in broken patches. Naruto and Sakura moved swiftly from branch to branch until they reached a clearing. The wind suddenly shifted, carrying a strange electric tingle. Sakura paused, scanning the area. I can feel it, there's something off here. Naruto jumped down from a tree branch. The second his foot touched the ground, an intense wave of foreign chakra rattled him. It pulsed under the soil, vibrating with an otherworldly hum. He grimaced. Feels like the ground's alive. They advanced carefully, senses on high alert. As they neared a steep ravine, the air crackled. A faint shimmer, like heat haze, flickered in and out of view. Sakura gasped. Naruto, do you see? Before she could finish, the shimmer exploded into a swirl of black energy. A tear in space, no bigger than a doorway, formed. The edges glowed with chaotic light. On the other side, Naruto caught a glimpse of jagged rocks and swirling red skies. It was just a momentary peek into something beyond their world. A monstrous shape lunged out. A draconic creature the size of a large wolf, with razor-sharp scales and glowing yellow eyes. Its roar pierced the air, dislodging leaves from branches. Sakura cursed. What is that thing? Naruto's heart clenched. The creature's presence tugged at him. A low, sinister voice in the back of his mind hissed. It's one of mine, bow to me. He stumbled, hands to his temples. Ugh, the beast didn't wait. It charged forward with fangs bared. Sakura struck first, channeling chakra into her fist. Shanaru. She slammed her punch into the beast's flank, sending it skidding across the ground. It screeched but recovered quickly, snarling. Naruto bit his lip, forcing down the bizarre urge swirling inside. I don't know what you are, but I'm not letting you run wild. He flashed through hand seals. Wind style. Rasen Shuriken. The swirling orb of wind chakra formed in his palm, crackling. He launched it at the creature. A thunderous impact tore through the clearing, uprooting trees and scattering debris. The creature's pained roar died abruptly as it was annihilated by the jutsu's might. When the dust settled, the rift flickered shut, as though it had never been there. Sakura exhaled, shaking out her fist. Okay, that was new. Naruto stared at the spot where the rift had been. His pulse pounded in his ears. That beast, whatever it was, had recognized something in him. He took a calming breath. We should report this. There might be more. Afternoon. Konoha training grounds. By the time they got back to the village, both decided to keep the incident quiet until they reported to Tsunade. Still, Naruto felt restless. He parted ways with Sakura and headed straight for the training grounds, desperate to blow off some steam. The meadow was mostly empty, Just a wide expanse of grass and a few wooden posts battered from years of shinobi practice. As he started warming up, he heard light footsteps behind him. "Naruto," came a bright voice. He turned to see Ino Yamanaka jogging over, blonde ponytail swaying. She wore a confident smirk that only deepened as she got closer. "Hey, Ino," Naruto said, trying to keep his smile normal. She looked him up and down. "You look tense. Something happen?" "Just, the usual." He stretched his shoulders, feigning nonchalance. "Haven't seen you around much." Ino placed a hand on her hip. "Well, things have been busy at the Yamanaka flower shop. But I've got some time now. Mind if I join you?" Naruto let out a half laugh. "You sure you can keep up?" She winked. "Try me." They sparred lightly, exchanging quick taijutsu combos. Ino was more skilled than people gave her credit for, her timing precise, her agility sharp. Naruto dialed down his strength to avoid accidentally hurting her, but his new power kept flaring up unpredictably. After a few minutes, he backed off, panting, "You're pretty good." Ino wiped a bead of sweat from her temple, tossing her ponytail. "Better believe it." She stepped closer, a mischievous glint in her eye. "But something's different about you. It's like you're radiating something intense." Naruto froze. Was it that obvious? He quickly masked his surprise with a playful grin. "Guess I've been working out?" She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, sure." Then, unexpectedly, she moved in and pressed her lips against his. Naruto's mind blanked. He felt her softness, the warmth of her breath. It was a sudden, bold kiss, short but electric. She pulled away, smirking at his stunned expression. "That's for not visiting the flower shop more often, hero." His heart thundered in his chest. He found himself leaning forward slightly, as if wanting more. "Ino, what?" She tapped his nose. "Relax, it's just a kiss. Don't tell me you can't handle it." Naruto managed a chuckle, trying to downplay how much his pulse was racing. "I can handle anything. That just caught me off guard." "Good. I like keeping you on your toes," Ino teased, turning to leave. "I'll see you around." He watched her walk away, a million questions swirling in his mind. Part of him felt guilty. He'd always had a complicated tangle of feelings for Sakura, and Hinata had confessed her love during the war. But something about this new power, this new confidence, made him less hesitant to accept Ino's boldness. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "What am I getting myself into?" Early evening, Hokage's office. With the sun dipping low, Naruto and Sakura reported their findings about the rift to Tsunade, Kakashi, and Shikamaru, who was assisting with strategic duties. "So you're saying a creature came out of a literal tear in reality?" Shikamaru asked, leaning back in his chair. "That's troublesome." Kakashi nodded. "We've had occasional anomalies since the war ended, but nothing like this. A direct rift big enough for a monster to come through? That's on another level." Tsunade drummed her fingers on the desk. "Did the creature seem intelligent?" Sakura shook her head. "It acted purely on instinct, at least from what I saw. Naruto destroyed it before it could do much else." All eyes turned to Naruto, who was uncharacteristically quiet. He cleared his throat. "Yeah, it was strong, but no match for a Rasen shuriken. Still, it felt weird, like it recognized me." A tense silence settled. Tsunade finally spoke. "We'll assign additional squads to monitor that area. If another rift appears, we'll be ready. For now, get some rest. And Naruto." He turned, meeting her gaze. "I want you to come in tomorrow morning for a medical scan. Just to ensure there aren't any post-war anomalies with your chakra. Agreed?" Naruto forced a smile. "Sure, whatever you need." But dread pooled in his gut. If the medics discovered the strange draconic energy inside him, he wasn't sure how they'd react or how he'd explain it. Nightfall. Rooftop overlooking Konoha. After leaving the Hokage's office, Naruto found himself wandering. He ended up on a rooftop near the village center, watching the lamps flicker on street by street. A gentle wind ruffled his hair. Footsteps behind him made him glance back. Hinata Hyuga stood there, eyes soft, hands nervously clasped. "Naruto-kun?" she said quietly. Are you okay?" He gave her a gentle smile. "Hey, Hinata. I'm all right, just thinking." Hinata approached, standing beside him. "I heard there was some trouble. Rumors are spreading about a monster in the forest." Naruto let out a small sigh. Word travels fast. Don't worry, it's handled. They stood in companionable silence for a moment. Hinata's warmth was reassuring. She was the one who'd always quietly believed in him. But now, after everything, after Ino's unexpected kiss, the swirling changes in his body, he felt off balance. She glanced at him from the corner of her eye. If you ever need to talk about anything, you know I'm here. He turned, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. Thanks, Hinata. Really, I appreciate that. Her cheeks reddened. She swallowed, stepping slightly closer. Naruto-kun, He could tell she wanted to say something more, maybe about the confession she'd made during the war. He reached out, brushing a stray lock of her dark hair from her face. For a heartbeat. Their eyes locked. The air crackled with tension that neither had the words to resolve. Before either could speak, a deafening thunderclap shook the skies. They turned in time to see black clouds gathering rapidly overhead, blotting out the moon. A flash of lightning illuminated the entire village. Naruto's heart lurched. That same voice echoed in his mind. Arise, new monarch. As if in answer to the voice, Naruto's chest erupted in heat. He doubled over, gasping. Hinata caught his arm. Naruto-kun. He clenched his teeth, feeling something under his skin like slivers of obsidian scraping to the surface. Sparks of dark chakra flickered around him. For an instant, his right forearm shimmered with black scales. A wave of raw power rolled off him, cracking the rooftop tiles. Naruto. Hinata called, eyes wide. She activated her Byakugan. Your chakra flow hits. He stumbled back, eyes glowing with an unearthly golden hue. Lightning crashed again. In the distance, villagers pointed to the sky, alarmed. But just as quickly as it surged, the power receded. The scales faded from Naruto's arm, leaving him panting, drenched in sweat. Hinata gripped him tightly, trembling. What was that? Breathing ragged, Naruto looked at his trembling hands. I don't know, he managed between gulps of air, but it's getting stronger. Later that night, Naruto's apartment word had spread about the freak thunderstorm, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind an uneasy tension in Konoha. Hinata escorted Naruto back to his apartment, insisting he rest. Once sure he wasn't on the verge of collapsing again, she left reluctantly. Now alone, Naruto sat in the middle of his living room floor, trying to calm his racing thoughts. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that dragon. The vow he'd made as a child to become Hokage and protect everyone clashed with this new power, ominous and untamed. He clenched his fists. I can't let this thing control me. But a small, traitorous part of him thrilled at the strength he just felt. That moment on the rooftop, it was like he could tear open the sky if he wanted to, and the idea was exhilarating. Eyes drifting to the window, he saw the moon high and bright again, as though the storm had never been. He remembered Ino's mischievous smirk, Sakura's worried eyes, Hinata's gentle concern. They all sensed he was changing. But do I even have a choice? With a sigh, he resolved to keep the transformations hidden until he understood them. Tomorrow's medical scan, could he hide it even from Tsunade? He wasn't sure. Soon, the voice in his head whispered, fading like a stray echo. Naruto clenched his jaw, ignoring it as best he could, and eventually drifted into uneasy sleep. Pre-dawn. A dream of scales and fire, he found himself on that battlefield again. Red skies, swirling ash, monstrous dragons surrounding him. A gargantuan black dragon descended, its eyes molten gold. Human child, it rumbled, each syllable shaking the earth. You are the vessel of the monarch's soul. You will ascend. Naruto stared, unafraid this time. Why me? The dragon's maw curled in what could have been a terrible grin. Because your will is unbreakable. You housed a beast of hatred and molded it into your power. Now the time has come for the dragon's dominion. A wave of heat rolled off the dragon. Naruto felt his limbs go rigid. The scale on his arm glowed, spreading across his skin. Pain and ecstasy mingled. I won't be consumed by you. Naruto tried to shout, but his voice vanished in the roar of dragonfire overhead. The beast's voice faded into echoes, and the dream shattered. Morning. Konoha Hospital. The bright fluorescent lights of the hospital halls made Naruto squint. Tsunade had personally arranged for a thorough checkup. Nurses bustled around him, scribbling notes, hooking him up to machines meant to measure chakra flow and overall vitals. Tsunade stood near the door, arms crossed. Beside her, Shizune flipped through a clipboard. So? Tsunade asked, tapping her foot impatiently. Shizune bit her lip, scanning the test results. All normal on the surface. No sign of foreign influences. His chakra levels are stable, although abnormally high. She shot Naruto a worried glance. It's higher than even after the war, which is saying something. Naruto forced a casual shrug. Guess I'm just healthy as a horse. Tsunade's amber eyes narrowed, clearly unconvinced. Naruto. Has the Kyuubi's chakra changed in any way? He debated lying, but Tsunade was no fool. Not that I can tell, he said slowly. It feels the same as always. I can still sense Kurama. But there's something else, too. Like a different well of energy that isn't from the Kyuubi. Silence pressed in. Tsunade exhaled. Keep monitoring it. If anything feels off, you come to me immediately. Her tone brooked no argument. Naruto nodded, relieved she wasn't pushing further for now. Midday. Training ground 7. He needed fresh air, needed to escape the suffocating tension. So he went to the old Team 7 training grounds, where he'd once practiced under Kakashi with Sakura and Sasuke. Nostalgia and a bit of sadness washed over him. Sasuke was off traveling the world, seeking atonement. Naruto gathered his breath and started running through taijutsu forms. The wind felt good against his skin. He tried to coax out the new power just enough to get a feel for it without losing control. He inhaled, focusing. For a split second, black scales flickered along the back of his hand. The hair on his neck stood up as a surge of energy twisted in his core. He could sense it like a second chakra network overlapping his normal one, deeper, darker, and far more potent. Gotta handle this carefully, he murmured. If I misuse it, who knows what'll happen. He punched forward, unleashing a burst of air pressure that splintered a wooden training post from 20 feet away. Naruto's eyes widened. Whoa, I didn't even use that much chakra. A rustle in the trees made him turn. Sakura emerged, her expression a mixture of relief and caution. I hoped I'd find you here. He tried to hide his nerves. Sakura, hey. She approached, crossing her arms. I asked around the hospital. They said your results were normal. Mind telling me why you had an episode with Hinata last night? Naruto's breath caught. She told you? Not the details. Sakura's gaze softened. She was just worried. He ran a hand through his hair. Look, I'm not sure what's happening to me, okay? But I know it's more than just leftover war stress. Sakura stepped closer, putting a gentle hand on his arm. Naruto, you don't have to deal with this alone. We've all fought too many battles to let something fester without a solution. His heart tightened. Her closeness reminded him of the war's final days, of how she'd been ready to sacrifice everything by his side. Now, he sensed her concern, but also a flicker of something else, a fascination with his new aura. Sakura, he murmured. Her eyes flicked to his lips. For a moment, the air between them felt charged. Before Naruto could stop himself, he leaned in. It was a tentative kiss at first, born of confusion and leftover adrenaline. But she responded, pressing closer, hands sliding up his chest. A swirl of warmth and guilt mingled in Naruto's gut, guilt because of Hinata, because of Ino. Yet he couldn't deny the electric rush coursing through him. They broke apart, breathless. Sakura's cheeks were flushed. Naruto let out a shaky laugh, stepping back. I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me. She exhaled, looking torn. We should talk about this. But maybe later, when we're not in the middle of a training field. He nodded, still reeling. Right. Before they could continue, a sharp cry echoed through the clearing. Both turned to see a frantic Chunin sprinting their way. Uzumaki. Haruno. The ninja shouted, panting hard. There's an emergency by the main gates. A swirling portal, or something. And creatures are pouring out. Naruto's eyes widened. Portal? Like the one we saw in the forest? Sounds like it, Sakura muttered, adrenaline spiking. Let's go. Early afternoon. Konoha's main gate, chaos reigned. Villagers fled in panic. Shinobi formed defensive lines near the massive gates. A shimmering rift, larger than the one in the forest, buzzed with violent energy. Half a dozen draconic beasts, some lizard-like, some winged, charged forward, slashing at any ninja in their path. Sakura jumped into the fray, fists blazing with chakra. Her first strike sent a scaly beast careening into a stone wall. Another lunged at her, but she dropped low, sweeping its legs out before delivering a punishing upward punch. Naruto skidded to a halt, eyes scanning the scene. This was worse than before. The creatures radiated that same bizarre aura he'd felt. It called to him, thrumming in his chest. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he yelled. 5 clones appeared, each dashing into the fight to hold back the beasts. He formed a Rasengan in his palm, preparing to strike. But one of the creatures, larger than the rest, locked eyes with Naruto. Its scales glistened with a deep obsidian shine. With a powerful leap, it soared above the rest, diving straight for him. Time seemed to slow. The clang of weapons and the roar of beasts faded. Naruto felt that inner power rise, pulling him to meet the creature head-on. He lunged upward, chakra flaring. The moment their eyes met, he sensed a flicker of recognition, almost as if it was bowing in submission even as it attacked. That voice, he roared, driving the Rasengan into the beast's chest. Dark blood sprayed, and it disintegrated in an echoing scream. Behind him, his clones finished off the smaller creatures, Sakura smashing one that tried to slip past. Shinobi pinned down the last straggler. With the immediate threat cleared, the rift began to waver. A final swirling surge of black energy erupted. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, it snapped shut, leaving behind scorch marks on the ground. Naruto landed, his breath ragged. The draconic aura in his body pulsed, feeding off the battle. He shuddered, trying to keep control. Shikamaru and a few Enbu arrived, eyes darting around. "Everyone safe?" Shikamaru asked, scanning for casualties. Sakura wiped sweat from her brow. "Some injuries, but nothing fatal, I think." A hush spread. Villagers and shinobi alike turned to Naruto, some with awe, some with fear. He'd single-handedly obliterated the biggest creature in one strike. Even by his standards, it was overwhelmingly forceful. Naruto swallowed, ignoring the stares. "Is everyone all right?" A chorus of quiet nods and murmured thanks surrounded him, but he could feel the undercurrent. What was that monstrous power? They'd seen his feats in the war, but this was different. Sakura glanced at him nervously. "Naruto," he gave a quick shake of his head, telling her they'd talk later. Late afternoon, debrief at the Hokage's office. The tension in Tsunade's office was palpable. Kakashi, Shikamaru, and a handful of other high-ranking shinobi stood around the large meeting table, discussing the day's events. Outside, Konoha's emergency repair teams rushed to fix the gate's damage. Tsunade rubbed her temples. So, 2 rifts in one day? And each time, draconic beasts appear. We can't ignore this. We need solutions. Kakashi nodded. I'll dispatch reconnaissance teams to monitor possible anomalies around the village perimeter. Shikamaru chimed in. I'll coordinate barrier experts to see if we can detect the rift's energy in advance. Tsunade looked to Naruto, who stood near the back with Sakura. Naruto, I want you prepared to lead an immediate response squad if another rift shows up. You're our best weapon against these creatures. Naruto gave a curt nod. Understood. He noticed Tsunade's subtle frown, as though she wanted to ask more about his part in all this. Yet she held back, perhaps wary of making accusations without evidence. Sunset. On a hill overlooking the village after the meeting, Naruto slipped away. He found an isolated hilltop where the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in a warm palette of orange and purple. The wind caressed the tall grass in gentle waves. He sank to his knees. For a moment, he let the frustration and fear seep out in a single exhale. This power, it's pulling me in 2 directions. He closed his eyes, recalling the creature's gaze, a mixture of hostility and reverence. I'm somehow linked to them. A scuff of footsteps behind him broke his solitude. Sakura, Ino, and Hinata stood there, each wearing her own expression of concern. Sakura spoke first. We've been worried. Ino nodded, eyes scanning his face. You're not your usual self, Naruto. And I'm not talking about the flirty stuff or your old bravado. This is something else. Hinata took a timid step forward. Naruto-kun, please, let us help. A surge of conflicting emotions crashed over him. He remembered the kisses, Ino's bold approach at the training ground, Sakura's surprising softness earlier, Hinata's unwavering devotion. A swirl of guilt, desire, and protective instinct coiled in his chest. Yet overshadowing it all was the draconic energy that threatened to erupt at any moment. He looked away, fists clenched. I don't know how to handle this. Part of me wants to tell you everything, but I can barely understand it myself. A gentle hand touched his shoulder. He turned to see Hinata gazing at him, her pale eyes brimming with empathy. Whatever it is, you don't have to face it alone. He met her gaze and felt a spark of warmth and gratitude. Then he caught Ino's eyes bright, intense. A trace of hunger there. Sakura's expression was tinged with worry and longing. It struck him that they were all truly concerned for him in their own ways. His heart pounded, remembering what it felt like to kiss each of them. He knew he couldn't keep ignoring their feelings or his own. But any words he might have said lodged in his throat. Finally, he let out a breath. I'll try to figure this out, but whatever's happening, it's bigger than me. These rifts aren't gonna stop just because we want them to. Sakura nodded. Then we'll keep fighting, together. Ino's lips curved into a small smile. That's the Konoha way, right? Hinata's cheeks warmed, but her voice was firm. Yes. We'll be by your side, Naruto-kun. A lull fell over them, the weight of unspoken sentiments mingling with the last echoes of sunlight. In the distance, the village lights flickered on, each one a beacon of hope. For Naruto, that sight steadied him. They parted ways not long after, each returning to their respective homes. Yet something had shifted between them, an unspoken agreement to stay close, to uncover this mystery. Nightfall, Naruto's apartment. Final scene. Alone again, Naruto stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. The memory of the day's battles replayed in his mind. The terrifying rifts, the strange reverence from that monstrous dragon. The raw power that had surged through him. I can't keep pretending it's nothing, he muttered, pulling up his right sleeve. He half expected black scales to greet him. Instead, his skin looked normal, though a faint pulse throbbed beneath the surface. He clenched his fist. I'll use this power to protect everyone, even if it means embracing something I don't fully understand. A flicker of lightning flashed outside his window, just a single, silent bolt in a clear sky. As if in answer, the dragon's voice echoed faintly in his head. Claim your dominion. Naruto closed his eyes, adrenaline spiking at the promise of more power. He wondered if, in the end, he'd truly be able to control it or if it would consume him whole. Tomorrow, he'd delve deeper. For tonight, he forced himself into bed, mind spinning with thoughts of dragons and rifts, of Sakura, Ino, Hinata, of everything he stood to protect. The world outside was quiet, but a storm brewed just beneath his skin, and as he drifted off, a single notion crystallized. The dragon monarch within him had only just begun to awaken. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Dominion Among Shinobi. Late morning, Konoha's hospital rooftop. Naruto stood at the edge of the rooftop, arms folded across his chest, surveying the village below. The sun was high, illuminating Konoha's bustling streets. Villagers went about their day, oblivious to the tumult raging inside him. A soft wind ruffled his hair. He'd escaped up here shortly after another round of tests, hoping Tsunade wouldn't track him down. The medics had run extensive scans, all inconclusive except for the obvious. His chakra was skyrocketing, and some new, unidentifiable energy signature accompanied it. They couldn't pin down its nature or its danger. His mind drifted to the kisses, Sakura's hesitant warmth, and Ino's sudden boldness. Hinata's quiet closeness from the night before. Guilt and excitement battled in his chest. He'd never imagined himself juggling such emotional entanglements, yet the power coiling within him seemed to give him a magnetic pull, drawing people closer than ever. He stared over the rooftops, trying to steady himself. Footsteps sounded behind him on the gravel. He turned to find Shikamaru, hands in his pockets, wearing a resigned expression. Found you, Shikamaru muttered, stepping up. Tsunade's not pleased you ran off. Naruto shrugged, forcing a grin. Nothing new. She's always mad about something. Shikamaru eyed him thoughtfully. She's concerned, and so am I. You're different these days. Different how? A faint breeze stirred Shikamaru's ponytail. You've always had incredible chakra, but this new stuff. He paused, as though searching for the right words. It feels like standing near a storm. And your mood swings are sharper. Not to mention all the talk around the village about those rifts. Naruto's jaw tightened. I'm fine. I just need time. Shikamaru frowned. Troublesome. If time's what you need, We'll give it to you. But at least check in with us before you go AWOL again. With that, Shikamaru pivoted, tossing a casual wave over his shoulder as he headed toward the stairwell. Alone again, Naruto sighed. The last few days had been a whirlwind. 2 rifts, monstrous dragons, and an awakening power that refused to be caged. He couldn't shake the feeling it was all connected. He focused on the skyline, remembering his vow to protect Konoha at all costs. I'll figure this out, or I'll die trying. Afternoon. Hokage's office. By the time Naruto arrived, Tsunade had assembled a small council in her office. Kakashi stood by the window, mask concealing half his face. Sakura and Sai hovered to the side, while 2 village elders Homura and Koharu sat stiffly on a couch, clearly awaiting him. Naruto straightened a bit, bracing himself for a grilling. He didn't have to wait long. Uzumaki, Koharu said, peering over her thin spectacles, these rifts. They've been opening alarmingly close to you. And you seem, by all accounts, to hold some connection to the creatures spilling out. Naruto swallowed his irritation. I'm not summoning them, if that's what you're suggesting. Homura's gaze was stern. No one has accused you outright. But the timing and the nature of these beasts raise valid concerns. We must protect the village. He could sense Tsunade resisting the urge to snap at the elders. Instead, she cut in with a calmer tone. We're instituting a new alert system. Barriers that might pick up on dimensional anomalies. Naruto, until we understand this link, we want you on standby for immediate response. Kakashi nodded, directing his single visible eye at Naruto. We need your power if another wave hits. But we also need caution. Sai observed quietly, then spoke in his usual placid tone. If you're harboring new chakra, perhaps intensifying your training would help you control it. Naruto gave a curt nod. Fine, I'll do whatever it takes. He tried to keep his voice steady, but part of him bristled. He hated the council's insinuation that he might be a ticking time bomb. Yet, in his heart, he couldn't entirely deny it either. Late afternoon, training field behind the academy. Naruto had asked for some privacy, and Tsunade granted him one of the smaller, less frequented training areas behind the academy. Beneath the canopy of old oak trees, he stood alone, trying to summon the new energy without letting it consume him. Slow exhale. Focus. He let his normal chakra flow first bright, warm, like a crackling fire. Then, carefully, he coaxed the second power. It responded instantly, a dark undertow that threatened to surge up. His arms shimmered with faint black scales that flickered across his skin. Stay calm, don't lose it. He concentrated, imagining a swirling sphere, not unlike the Rasengan, except made of obsidian flames. The energy crackled at his fingertips. A hush settled over the clearing. Then, he heard a voice from behind. Naruto. Startled, he lost focus. The scales vanished, leaving behind a jolt of pain. He whirled, spotting Sakura at the edge of the clearing, worry etched into her face. You okay? She asked softly, stepping closer. I saw you were training alone. You looked. He tried to force a grin but couldn't quite pull it off. I'm fine. Just, controlling this new power is harder than I thought. Sakura nodded, eyes darting to where the black scales had been. Maybe I can help, even if it's just monitoring your chakra flow while you train. He hesitated. On one hand, he was wary of letting someone see him struggle, but on the other, he trusted Sakura. Sure, he finally said. Just, keep your distance if things get crazy, all right? She offered a reassuring smile. We've survived worse. They resumed practice. Sakura knelt nearby, focusing her medical nin skills to analyze how Naruto's chakra twisted and combined with the foreign energy. He mustered the draconic power in small bursts, letting the scales appear on his forearms or surge through his fists. Each time, it felt like balancing on a razor's edge between mastery and meltdown. Minutes stretched into an hour. Sweat trickled down his temple, but he began to sense patterns. The black scales responded to willpower, his will. Each time he overcame fear or doubt, they stabilized. But if he wavered, the power flared out of control. Sakura inhaled. Naruto, your chakra networks are sort of layering. It's not just Kyuubi and your natural energy anymore. This is a third flow. If you learn to merge them carefully, you might gain. A flash of black glinted across Naruto's eyes. He stumbled as a wave of dizziness hit him. The scaled arm he'd manifested twitched with rebellious energy. Sakura scrambled to her feet. Naruto. He grit his teeth, shutting his eyes. I'm fine, he ground out. With a final surge of control, he forced the scales to recede. His breath came in ragged pants. That was close. Sakura eased up, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. You're making progress, but you have to pace yourself. He nodded, chest tight. He paused, meeting her concerned gaze. Emotions from the other day resurfaced. The memory of their kiss flickered between them. Her cheeks tinted, though she didn't pull away. Thank you, he said, voice low, for being here. She curled her fingers against him, uncertain, yet tender. We'll figure this out. The soft hush of the moment lingered, and almost kiss threatened to form. But footsteps approached again, rustling the underbrush. They turned to see Ino, arms folded, watching them with a raised brow. Well, guess I'm interrupting something. Her tone was playful, but there was a glint in her eyes that wasn't quite amusement. Sakura straightened, face flushing. Ino, hey, we were just training. Naruto supplied, wiping sweat from his forehead. Getting a handle on this new power. Ino gave a languid shrug, stepping forward and surveying him. So you're making progress? Good. Means I won't have to carry your sorry butt in a fight. Naruto chuckled, feeling oddly grateful for her breezy confidence. I'm the one who carried your butt last time, if I remember right. Ino smirked. Careful, hero. She glanced at Sakura, then back to Naruto. Mind if I help too? He swallowed. The memory of her sudden kiss at the training ground flashed in his mind. Sure, he said, but let's keep it to some light sparring. I'm pretty tapped. A gentle tension hovered in the air. Sakura moved aside, arms crossing, a half smile tugging at her lips. Knock yourself out. Early evening. Near the village walls later, Naruto headed home to shower and change, but halfway there, he got sidetracked by rising commotion near Konoha's perimeter. He hurried to the source and found a small group of shinobi huddled around a collapsed guard tower. No rift this time, just ominous scorch marks and splintered wood. A panicked Chunin waved Naruto over. Uzumaki. Something tore through here like a huge claw mark or something. It vanished into the forest. Naruto scanned the damage, sense of dread building. Any injuries? A few. Nothing life-threatening. But it seemed draconic. The Chunin swallowed. We thought only the rifts spawned them. Naruto turned toward the forest, eyes narrowing. If a stray dragon-like beast had slipped through undetected, it might be roaming free. Stay alert. I'll track it. He launched himself into the trees, leaping from branch to branch, scanning for any sign of the creature. As the daylight faded, the forest grew quiet, as though nature itself held its breath. Then he caught a faint growl echoing through the pines. He landed on a gnarled branch, focusing. Show yourself, he called, voice echoing. A low rumble answered. From behind a clump of bushes, a reptilian shape emerged, scarred black scales, glowing red eyes. It was smaller than the ones that had attacked the gate, but still big enough to be lethal. Its posture was wounded, as if it had barely escaped a bigger fight. Naruto braced, expecting it to lunge. Instead, it snorted, crouching low. He felt that eerie pull again, the sense of recognition from the beast. His new chakra roiled in response. He swallowed hard. You're the same as the others, aren't you? No response, of course, just a hiss. Yet beneath that hostility, he sensed a faint docility, almost like the beast was waiting for a command. He extended a hand, channeling the faintest trickle of the draconic energy. The creature's eyes flicked to his palm. For one surreal moment, it seemed to bow its head, as though acknowledging him. Then its flank quivered, and it roared in agony, spurts of blood hitting the dirt. It stumbled, collapsing to the ground. Naruto's eyes widened. Hey! Against all logic, he rushed to the beast's side, ignoring the risk. Its breathing came in harsh, ragged pulls, a jagged wound across its belly. Probably from a prior battle. This is insane, he thought, hearing Sakura's voice in his head telling him to be careful, but a spark of compassion took hold. Carefully, he laid a hand near the wound. I'm not sure if this'll help, but... He funneled a small current of healing chakra, something he'd learned from observing Tsunade and Sakura. The beast's wound knitted slightly, though not fully. Its ragged breathing slowed. It gazed at him, eyes glowing faintly with confusion or gratitude. Naruto crouched there, heart hammering. Why am I doing this? But somehow, he couldn't stand to see the creature suffer, even if it had harmed the village. Suddenly, a shadow flickered across the clearing. Naruto jerked up to see Sasuke Uchiha standing on a higher branch, his Rinnegan swirling ominously. You're healing it? Naruto froze. Sasuke had returned to Konoha from his travels so quietly that Naruto hadn't even sensed him until this moment. The dragon hissed weakly, scrambling back in fear, but it could barely move. Sasuke, Naruto's voice trailed off, when did you get back? Sasuke's expression was unreadable. Just now. And I find you here, nursing a monster that attacked our village. Care to explain? Naruto tensed. It's complicated. Sasuke eyed the wounded beast, then Naruto. I'm guessing so. He hopped down, boots crunching on twigs. His Sharingan slid to the creature. I can end it if you want. Naruto's fists clenched. No, his voice came out sharper than intended. It's not attacking us anymore. It's obeying me, somehow. Sasuke cocked an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. Then what do you propose we do with it? Naruto glanced at the trembling creature. He had no real plan. After a moment's hesitation, he said, let me deal with it. I owe it to the village to find answers. Sasuke let out a quiet huff. Fine. But don't let it run loose. With that, he turned, the edge of his cloak swishing. I'm heading to the Hokage's office. We'll talk later. And then, in a blink, Sasuke vanished, leaving Naruto with the injured dragon. Weariness tugged at him, but he squared his jaw. Come on, he murmured to the beast, forcing more healing chakra into it. If you really do understand me, let's get you someplace safe quietly before the rest of the village tries to kill you. Nightfall. Secret hideaway managing to slip past the outskirts, Naruto guided the limping creature to an abandoned shed near the old training grounds outside the village walls, a relic from the war that nobody visited anymore. It wasn't exactly warm or inviting, but it provided shelter. The beast settled onto a broken plank floor, panting weakly. Naruto wiped sweat from his brow, heart still racing. He couldn't believe he was doing this. 1,000 questions battered his mind. What if it attacks? What if the council finds out? What if I'm making the biggest mistake of my life? Yet as he looked at the battered creature, some protective instinct swelled within him like it was part of his domain now. My domain? Am I going nuts? He sank onto an upturned crate, exhaling. We'll figure this out, he told the beast, fully aware he was talking to a feral draconic monster. Rest up, then, we'll see. He stayed for nearly an hour, ensuring the creature wouldn't bleed out. After conjuring a shadow clone to watch it through the night, Naruto slipped back toward the village. He kept to the shadows, mind reeling. If Tsunade knew he was harboring a stray monster, she'd have his head, but he needed answers. Late night, Naruto's apartment. After cleaning up, Naruto flopped onto his bed. The day had been draining physically and emotionally. Scenes flashed through his head. Sparring with Sakura and Ino. Sasuke's sudden return. Healing a draconic beast in the forest. Above all, that relentless voice of the Dragon Monarch echoed in fragments, urging him to claim dominion, to rule. He turned restlessly under the sheets, thinking of the harem dynamic forming around him. It felt both exhilarating and guilt-inducing. Sakura's sincerity, Ino's playfulness, Hinata's unwavering devotion. Each relationship was shifting in ways he never expected. He had no illusions that it would be simple. Exhaustion pulled at him. He closed his eyes, letting sleep claim him at last. Pre-dawn. A dream of thrones, he found himself standing on a colossal dais, carved from obsidian stone and draped in tattered black banners. Countless dragons, large and small, bowed in a ring that stretched to the horizon. Lightning forked across a blood-red sky. At the foot of the dais stood 9 other thrones, each carved from monstrous bones. Most were empty. But in the largest seat opposite Naruto sat a shadowy figure whose face was obscured. Twin golden eyes glowed beneath a horned crown. The figure stirred, voice booming through the dreamscape. So you've begun to gather your brood. Naruto shook his head. What are you talking about? A low, mocking laugh. You've healed the wounded spawn, drawn it under your wing. The path to your reign is unfolding. But do you truly believe you can protect the ones you cherish if you deny your true nature? Naruto's fists clenched. I'm not going to become some tyrant. If I have this power, I'll use it for good. Lightning flashed again, illuminating countless spires of black stone. The figure rose from the throne. Power doesn't bend to morality without cost, child. Soon you will see. A roar thundered across the dream, and the vision dissolved into swirling ash. Dawn. Konoha streets. Naruto awoke early, drenched in sweat. That voice left him shaken. You've begun to gather your brood. It echoed the odd sense of connection he'd felt to the wounded beast. He hurried out into the village streets while most shops were still closed. A few early birds ambled by with baskets of produce. Shinobi night guards nodded tired greetings. In the distance, the Hokage monument loomed. Naruto gazed up at the stone faces Hashirama, Tobirama, Hiruzen, Minato, and Tsunade. I can't let this new power overshadow my dream of becoming Hokage. I just can't. He set his jaw and headed toward the abandoned shed, craving answers about the creature he'd hidden. Early morning, the abandoned shed. Naruto dismissed his tired clone. The dragon lay curled on the dirt, eyes half-lidded. At Naruto's approach, it shifted, sniffing warily. Its wound had partly healed but still looked raw. He carefully set down a pack of supplies he'd taken from the hospital storehouse: bandages, sterilizing fluid, and some basic rations. He doubted the beast would enjoy ninja rations, but it was the best he could do on short notice. He crouched near it. Morning, he said wryly, feeling a bit foolish. You hungry? It snorted, then blinked at him. With slow, measured movements, he patted the ground, offering some of the ration bars crumbled up. The beast sniffed and, to his surprise, ate them. Not exactly gourmet, but better than nothing. As it ate, Naruto placed a hand near the wound again, channeling more healing chakra. He was no medical nin, but he could accelerate recovery somewhat. The dragon didn't resist. He let out a sigh, a strange sense of relief settling over him. Perhaps this was insane, but it also felt right. If these creatures were connected to him somehow, maybe empathy was the key to controlling them. Better than just slaughtering them on sight. Footsteps outside made his heart leap. No way to hide, he braced for confrontation. But it was Hinata who peeked into the shed, eyes wide. Naruto-kun. Her voice shook with a mixture of alarm and confusion as she took in the scene. Her friend crouched beside a wounded draconic creature that calmly ate from his hand. He managed a sheepish smile. Morning, Hinata. She approached cautiously, Byakugan activating out of reflex. I sensed an unfamiliar chakra and followed it. I never imagined. Her gaze flicked between Naruto and the dragon. Are you taming it? Naruto exhaled. I don't know, but I couldn't let it die. It attacked the village gates last night, was injured, probably from a rift or something. He trailed off, searching for the right words. I feel responsible. Hinata knelt beside him, gentle yet steady. The dragon tensed at her proximity, but Naruto sent a calming wave of his draconic aura, and it settled. She reached out, carefully touching the beast's flank with a medic's caution. Her hands glowed faintly, adding to Naruto's healing attempt. Surprise flickered in her expression. Its chakra pathways are different, but I can feel some resonance with yours. That's what I'm trying to figure out, Naruto said, relief mingling with the tension in his gut. I know this is dangerous. If the elders find out, they'll label me a threat all over again. Hinata gave him a worried look. Maybe you should talk to Lady Tsunade. No, he cut in, then winced at his own harsh tone. Not yet. I promise, I'll tell her eventually. But I need time. She hesitated, then nodded. I won't betray your trust, Naruto-kun. Just, be careful. Naruto smiled gratefully. Then, on impulse, he leaned in and pressed a gentle, lingering kiss to Hinata's lips. He felt her breath catch, cheeks warming instantly. She returned it shyly, a sweet, tender moment in the dim light of the shed. When they parted, her eyes brimmed with affection and a hint of confusion. Naruto-kun, she stammered, heart fluttering. He touched her cheek softly. Thank you for understanding. The dragon snorted, almost like it was annoyed by the romantic interruption, prompting a laugh from both of them. Hinata's blush deepened, but she smiled. Late morning, council meeting at the Hokage's tower. While Hinata promised to keep his secret, Naruto knew he had to show his face at the official briefing. He raced back to the Hokage's tower. Tsunade, Sasuke, Kakashi, Sakura, and Shikamaru were already there, along with a few other higher-ups. Tsunade didn't mince words. Sasuke has informed us that a wounded draconic creature escaped into the forest last night. Naruto, you encountered it as well? Naruto's heart lurched. So Sasuke had indeed reported the encounter. He kept his features neutral. I did, but it ran off. I couldn't finish it before it disappeared. Sasuke stood by the window, arms folded. It might still be out there. We can't afford to let it roam free. Tsunade nodded. We're organizing a sweep of the forest to find any trace of it or others like it. Naruto, you'll lead one squad, Sasuke another. Naruto forced himself not to glance at Sasuke, who looked suspicious but said nothing further. Understood. Sakura and Shikamaru exchanged uncertain looks, but they didn't voice any objection. As the meeting concluded, Tsunade added, and if you find it, do not risk your life to capture it alive. Eliminate the threat. Naruto's stomach twisted. Right. Midday, streets of Konoha. After the meeting, Naruto slipped into a side street to catch his breath. He hated lying outright, especially to Tsunade and Sasuke, but something in his gut told him it was right to protect the creature. He just hoped he wasn't making a mistake that could endanger the whole village. A familiar voice called, Naruto. He turned to see Ino jogging up, her blonde ponytail swaying. Heard the Hokages forming squads to hunt a rogue beast. Guess that means you're busy, huh? Naruto gave a half smile. Looks like it. She rested a hand on her hip. Well, I wasn't assigned to your squad. Shikamaru wants me on intel detail. But, she hesitated, then reached out and grabbed his collar, pulling him forward into a sudden, fierce kiss. Warm, insistent, borderline possessive. Naruto's eyes widened, a tingle rushing through him. They broke apart, breathing unevenly. Ino's cheeks were pink, but she smirked. Stay alive. Got it. He managed a laugh, quietly thrilled by her boldness. Yeah, got it. They heard someone clear their throat, and both turned to see Sakura approaching from behind a corner, lips tight. A flash of annoyance flickered across her features. We're forming squads, remember? Ino shrugged, eyes flicking between Sakura and Naruto, just giving him a little motivation. Sakura glowered, but there was no time to argue. Urgent matters demanded their attention. She grabbed Naruto's arm. Come on, we need you at the front gate. He let them lead him away, heart pounding with the collision of romance, jealousy, and tension swirling around him. The reality of his precarious situation settled heavily on his shoulders. Is this what it means to be the Dragon Monarch, torn between unstoppable power and complicated relationships? Early afternoon. Forest perimeter. It didn't take long for Naruto to be deployed, leading a small squad of Chunin and a couple of Jonin through the thick forest. He deliberately steered them away from the shed's location, feigning interest in random footprints or scorch marks that he knew wouldn't lead anywhere. His squad moved quietly, scanning every clearing and fallen log. One of the Jonin frowned. We're not finding anything. Maybe it fled further. Naruto forced a confident nod. Keep looking. It can't have gone far if it's injured. Inwardly, he just prayed the creature stayed put at the shed, unnoticed. If the squad found it, he'd be forced to fight to maintain his cover. Or blow the entire secret in front of everyone. Either scenario sucked. Despite hours of searching, they turned up nothing. By late afternoon, the group reconvened with Shikamaru's scouting party at a rendezvous point. Shikamaru shrugged wearily. No sign on our end either. Nearby, Sasuke stood with his arms crossed, scanning Naruto. Strange that it vanished without a trace. Naruto didn't waver under Sasuke's probing stare. It happens. Could be it bled out somewhere else. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, a flicker of suspicion. But he didn't press it, merely glancing away. Then we'll widen the perimeter tomorrow. Sunset. Rooftop balcony. Hokage Tower. After the fruitless hunt, Naruto found himself summoned to a private meeting with Tsunade. He stood on the balcony outside her office, the setting sun painting the horizon in vibrant oranges and reds. Tsunade joined him, arms folded. Naruto, I want the truth. Is there something you're not telling me about these creatures? His heart pounded, but he tried to keep his voice steady. I'm telling you everything I know. It wasn't entirely a lie, he truly knew little about the deeper nature of the dragons aside from that sense of kinship. She studied him, a flicker of disappointment in her gaze. You've always worn your heart on your sleeve. Lately, you're cagey. If something's wrong, I hope you trust me enough to come forward eventually. Guilt stabbed at his chest. Tsunade Bachin, he said quietly. I'm dealing with new powers. I promise, I'll keep the village safe. She sighed. Kakashi told me you're training more intensely. That's good. We need you at your best. But be careful not to shoulder too much alone. You've got friends, you've got me. Don't forget that. Naruto bowed his head, feeling the weight of her words. Thank you. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a sense of foreboding gnawed at him. The council's suspicions were rising, and Sasuke's watchful eye might soon uncover the dragon's existence. Meanwhile, the draconic energies within him grew by the day, demanding to be unleashed. Nightfall. The shed under cover of darkness. Naruto slipped back to the shed, moving silently. The dragon perked up upon his arrival, letting out a quiet hiss of greeting. The wound looked much better, and it even managed to stand, though shakily. Good to see you're recovering, Naruto murmured, crouching by it. He offered a chunk of leftover meat he'd managed to swipe from a nearby inn's trash without arousing suspicion. The beast tore into it eagerly. He took a seat on a creaky stool, mind swirling with the day's events. The village is hunting you, he whispered. I can't hide you forever. The dragon blinked at him, uncomprehending. Naruto sighed, pressing a hand to its scales. A faint pulse of draconic aura passed between them, like an echo of acceptance. Damn it, he thought. What happens if the rifts keep opening, and more of these guys pour in? We'll face total chaos, and I'm the only one who can. Before he could finish the thought, the air changed. A crackle of energy, like static. His heart lurched. Another rift? Here? But nothing appeared inside the shed. Instead, a swirling swirl of blackish wind manifested behind the building's collapsed wall. The dragon snarled, hackles rising. Naruto stood, fists clenched, as a robed figure stepped through the swirl. Eyes glowed faintly from under a hood. So, the figure said in a raspy voice, the rumored Dragon Monarch truly resides here. Naruto's pulse skyrocketed. Who are you? The figure took a slow step forward, ignoring the dragon's growl. I come from the same realm as these beasts. Our world calls out for its rightful ruler. But your presence has shaken the balance. Naruto launched a kunai, but the robed stranger batted it away effortlessly, as though batting aside a fly. Stay back, Naruto growled, forming a Rasengan in his palm. A hollow chuckle echoed. Save your wrath for your real enemy, Monarch. My master, the corrupted monarch, will soon breach this world in full force. Unless you accept your role, everything you love will burn. The words hammered at Naruto's chest. You think I'll stand by while your master invades my home? Think again. He lunged, Rasengan blazing. The figure sidestepped with preternatural speed, robes fluttering. Foolish, they whispered. A gloved hand lashing out with dark energy that slammed Naruto into the wall. The Rasengan fizzled out. Dazed, Naruto clutched his ribs, fury spiking. The dragon tried to protect him, but the figure merely hissed a command in some ancient tongue. Dark tendrils lashed out, pinning the creature in place. Witness the fate that awaits, the stranger said, yanking off their hood to reveal a gaunt face covered in black markings. If you do not ascend and challenge the corrupted monarch, these pitiful lizards your brood will become nothing but cannon fodder. Naruto's eyes glowed with golden intensity. His draconic power surged, black scales rippling across his arms. He roared, "Get away from my domain." A concussive blast of draconic chakra erupted from him, cracking the shed's remaining walls. The robed figure staggered, losing their grip on the dragon. They hissed, stumbling back through the swirling black wind. Your time is short, monarch, they spat. Heed the call, or perish. Then they vanished, the dimensional swirl closing behind them. Naruto collapsed to a knee, breath shuddering. Dust swirled in the battered remains of the shed, half of it now caved in. His chest burned from the stranger's attack. The dragon croaked weakly, stumbling over to Naruto, as if to check on him. Naruto gritted his teeth, adrenaline coursing. So there is a greater threat, a corrupted monarch. He forced himself upright, cradling sore ribs. We're in serious trouble, but I won't let him destroy my home. The dragon's glowing eyes met his. In that moment, Naruto sensed an unspoken vow between them, a bond forged by shared defiance. Midnight. A hill overlooking Konoha. Later, Naruto found himself perched on a lone hill, gazing at the moonlit village. The battered dragon rested behind him, hidden by tall grass and shadows. He decided it was no longer safe in the shed. This hillside was more remote, and he'd stand watch through the night. A swirl of thoughts kept him awake. The robed stranger's words echoed. Heed the call or perish. The specter of a corrupted monarch threatened not just Konoha, but the entire world. His mind turned to Sakura, Ino, and Hinata, each bound to him by evolving emotions. Could he protect them from a threat that transcended even the war? Could he harness the dragon monarch's power without being consumed? A pang of longing stabbed at him. He wasn't a naive kid who just wanted acknowledgement anymore. This was bigger than proving himself. It was about safeguarding everything he held dear, from the villagers who looked up to him, to the precious friends who staked their faith in him, and the women who stirred his heart in ways he never expected. In the distance, he saw faint lanterns glowing in the windows of the Hokage Tower. Tsunade was likely still awake, poring over emergency plans. Kakashi might be out on a covert mission. Sasuke was lurking somewhere in the village. Everyone, in their own way, was standing guard over peace. Naruto exhaled, turning to the wounded dragon. Its presence felt oddly comforting now. He approached slowly, placing a hand on its scaly neck. "If you're on my side, then we fight together," he murmured. The creature closed its eyes as though in agreement. The hush of the night embraced them, wind whispering through the grass. Far above, the stars glimmered, oblivious to mortal struggles. Naruto gazed up at them, determination flaring anew. "I won't bow to fear. If this corrupted monarch is coming, then let him come. I'll show him what it means to fight the one who never gives up." Yet even as he said it, a trace of doubt nagged. The robed stranger's power, the looming threat of more rifts, the swirl of conflicting loyalties in his life. He clenched his fist, black scales briefly flickering across his knuckles. The future was never certain, he reminded himself. All I can do is meet it head on. And so, Naruto stood sentinel under the moonlight, awaiting dawn, ready for whatever the next day might bring. His journey toward becoming the Dragon Monarch protector, warrior, and perhaps something more had only just begun, and the first rumblings of the greater storm were rolling in. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Embrace of the Dragon Realm. Late afternoon, inside the forest just outside Konoha. Naruto crouched beside the wounded dragon, carefully checking the makeshift bandages he'd applied days before. The beast still bore the scar of its near-fatal injury, but thanks to his repeated attempts at healing and a steady diet of whatever scraps he could sneak out of the village, it was strong enough now to stand and even walk short distances. Sunlight filtered through the high canopy, the shifting leaf shadows dancing across Naruto's face. He glanced around to ensure no one followed him, then exhaled. "All right, buddy," he said softly, resting a palm on the dragon's flank. "You look almost back to normal." The dragon huffed, more like an impatient grunt than the feeble croaks it made when injured. Over the last few days, Naruto had formed a strange kinship with the creature. A tether, almost, that pulsed in his gut whenever it was near. He'd spent each dawn and dusk sneaking out to check on it, unaware how swiftly rumors were spreading among shinobi. Rifts continued to pop up here and there, though less frequently and more randomly. Unsettling energy hung over Konoha like a raincloud ready to burst. Naruto had told no one of the robed figure's visit, not even Hinata. Truthfully, he was still processing the encounter himself. Corrupted monarch, ascend or perish, and the fear that some otherworldly war was headed straight for the shinobi world. The dragon nudged him, snapping him from his thoughts. Naruto smiled. All right. You hungry again, huh?" He rummaged in a burlap sack, pulling out half a roasted chicken he'd charmed away from an unsuspecting food stall. "Don't get used to these freebies," he muttered, tossing it to the dragon, who devoured it in seconds. "Greedy," Naruto joked. But the momentary lightness in his tone vanished as he sensed something shift in the atmosphere, a faint ripple, like static just beneath the surface. The dragon growled in response, golden eyes narrowing. Naruto stood, scanning the undergrowth. Another rift? Then, without warning, Sasuke landed on a branch overhead, silent as a hawk. His dark cloak and Rinnegan made him look more imposing than ever. Naruto's heart lurched. Crap. Busted. Sasuke's gaze flicked from Naruto to the dragon, which bristled, baring teeth. So this is where you've been disappearing to. Naruto raised both hands cautiously. Sasuke, listen. But Sasuke's expression was guarded. You lied. You said you lost track of it. All this time, you've been sheltering it behind everyone's back. The dragon tensed, ready to pounce. Naruto forced a wave of draconic chakra outward, calming it. Stand down, he murmured. The beast let out a low rumble but didn't lunge. Sasuke hopped down, his Rinnegan spinning. You've grown attached to it. Naruto's jaw tightened. It's not about attachment. I just can't kill something that surrendered. Silence stretched. Sasuke exhaled slowly, as if weighing his next move. I thought you'd say something like that. He cast another glance at the dragon's wary posture. But do you realize what you're risking? Tsunade, the elders, if they find out, you'll be under suspicion for treason. Naruto bristled. Treason? Because I saved a life? Sasuke's dark eyes narrowed. Because you're dealing with creatures from another world. We don't know their true nature. We don't know how many more are coming. Naruto's breath came fast. He felt anger simmer but also an underlying ache. Sasuke wasn't exactly wrong. But still, the memory of that robed figure's threat burned in his mind. He couldn't just ignore the bigger picture. He inhaled deeply, forcing calm. Look, Sasuke, something big is coming. The robed figure I told you about, he said, a corrupted monarch, plans to invade. That means entire armies of these dragons might appear. We have to figure out how to deal with them. Maybe even ally with them. We can't just slaughter anything that comes through. Sasuke let out a quiet scoff, though it wasn't entirely dismissive. If you have proof of this threat, we should bring it to Tsunade. Naruto hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. I want to, but if I go babbling about some unknown figure's warnings, the council will clamp down on me. You know how they are. Sasuke's expression softened, just a fraction. I do. He stared at the dragon again, noticing how it pushed close to Naruto, neither attacking nor fleeing. All right. I won't expose this. Yet. Relief flooded Naruto's face. Thanks. On one condition, Sasuke said sternly. Prove to me you can control it, that it won't threaten the village. If it does, I'll take it out myself. Naruto nodded. Deal. The tension eased, though not completely. Sasuke glanced around the clearing, scanning for clues. If that robed figure appears again, let me know. I will, Naruto said, meaning it. He turned back to the dragon, which eyed Sasuke warily. Naruto gently brushed its scales. All right, let's move you somewhere else, just in case. With one last uneasy look, Sasuke exhaled and vanished in a flurry of leaves. Alone again with the creature, Naruto felt like he'd just dodged a kunai to the heart. Nightfall, Naruto's apartment weariness tugged at Naruto's eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. He paced his small living area, wrestling with the day's events. Sasuke's vow to keep quiet was a lifeline, but the real bombshell was the robed figure's promise of a larger invasion. How long before Konoha was overrun? A quiet knock sounded at his door. He frowned. It was already past midnight. He unlocked it to find Sakura and Ino together on his doorstep. Both looked uncharacteristically tense. Hey. Naruto blinked. What's going on? Sakura slipped inside first, glancing around as though expecting eavesdroppers. Ino followed, flipping her ponytail back. We were at the hospital late, cross-checking reports on the rift sightings, Ino explained. Noticed your chakra signature was spiking earlier in the forest, plus Sasuke was out there, too. Naruto's heart skipped. They must have sensed the confrontation. It's nothing. Sakura shot him a look. Naruto, come on. She strode forward, grabbing his wrist. We're your friends. You can trust us. Ino placed a hand on his shoulder. The atmosphere in the village has changed. People are on edge. Some suspect you know more about these rifts than you're letting on. The elders have begun dropping hints that you might be the cause. Naruto inhaled sharply, resentment flaring. Of course they'd blame me. Some things never change. Sakura squeezed his arm, speaking softly. We believe in you. We just want to know what's really happening. Naruto glanced between them Sakura, whose unwavering concern still held warmth from that kiss they'd shared. And Ino, eyes intense with a mix of curiosity and attraction. He felt a pang of guilt for the secrets he was keeping. He didn't fully explain the dragon he'd hidden. Sasuke's words still fresh in his mind, but he did divulge the robed figure's appearance and the looming threat of a corrupted monarch. The two kunoichi exchanged startled looks as he recounted the cryptic warning. So that's why you've been so distant, Ino murmured, crossing her arms. Sakura's brow furrowed. Why not tell Lady Tsunade? Naruto flopped onto his couch, raking a hand through his hair. I don't have evidence. The last time I tried to talk about weird anomalies, the elders practically wanted me locked up for observation. Until I can prove the threat is real, Tsunade's hands might be tied by the council. Sakura's eyes softened with understanding. Ino tapped a foot, expression impatient. Well, you're not facing this alone. If a corrupted monarch is coming, we need to be ready. Naruto gave them a grateful look. Thank you, both of you. A small silence. Then, with a faint flush, Ino dropped onto the couch beside him, leaning close. It's been a while since I visited, she teased, a playful spark in her gaze. Sakura rolled her eyes but didn't leave. Instead, she sat on the other side of Naruto, arms folded, tapping a finger thoughtfully. We can worry about future threats, but you need rest. You look terrible. Naruto attempted a chuckle. Gee, thanks, Ino smirked, sliding an arm around Naruto's shoulders. Terrible. I think he looks kinda hot. All this brooding hero stuff suits him. He felt his pulse spike at her sudden closeness. The tension in the room shifted. Sakura eyed them, biting her lip. She'd never been quite as bold about her feelings, and seeing Ino cozy up to him clearly stoked something in her. Ino, Sakura said in a warning tone. Ino arched an eyebrow. Don't get possessive, forehead. But there was a half-smile beneath her words, not quite as hostile as old rivalries. Naruto gave an awkward laugh, heat rushing to his cheeks. He was well aware both women had grown closer to him recently, very close. Part of him thrilled at the attention, another part felt guilty. Yet the draconic aura in his core, the sense of power and confidence, emboldened him in ways he never expected. He found himself leaning toward Ino, capturing her lips in a heated kiss. She responded instantly, tangling her fingers in his hair. The rush of adrenaline mingled with desire, swirling in his chest. A moment later, he broke the kiss to see Sakura's expression a mix of surprise, jealousy, and something else. He hesitated, uncertain if he'd crossed a line. But Sakura's cheeks reddened, and in a flash of impulsiveness, she grabbed Naruto by the front of his shirt, pulling him into her own urgent kiss. Ino snickered softly. Well, that's more forward than usual. Sakura pulled back, panting slightly, her eyes shining with conflicted longing. This is so weird, she muttered, face flushed. But I can't deny. Naruto gently took her hand, unsure what to say. Ino placed her hand over theirs, making a strange triangle of fingers. The moment was electric, borderline overwhelming. A quiet, unspoken understanding flickered among them. Yes, it was complicated, but they were all in the same boat, drawn together by the swirl of new emotions and the looming danger. Perhaps it wasn't exactly typical romance, but nothing in Naruto's life had ever been typical. The three stayed close for a while, talking in hushed tones about everything and nothing: how to handle the elders, ideas for investigating the corrupted monarch, even swapping half-teasing barbs about who got to hog Naruto's attention next. Eventually, Sakura and Ino left, promising to keep each other in the loop if they discovered any new leads. Naruto watched them go, heart-pounding. He couldn't predict how this harem situation would unfold, but a spark of hope lit in him. Maybe they really could stand together. Early morning, training field near the Hokage monument. Naruto needed to clear his head. The air was brisk, sunrise painting the monument in pale gold. He performed basic taijutsu drills, building up to more advanced ninjutsu. Kurama's chakra coursed through him, familiar and warm, but it was overshadowed by that deeper, darker well of draconic energy. If I could just combine them safely, he formed a Rasengan, infusing a sliver of the black aura. The sphere crackled ominously, flickering with dark flames. He grimaced, feeling how unstable it was. Gotta figure out a stable ratio. Suddenly, a swirl of sand drifted across the clearing. Gaara, the cage of Sanagakure, landed lightly, his gourd clinking. Gaara! Naruto exclaimed, surprised. Gaara inclined his head. I came for an allied shinobi summit. Tsunade informed me of these rifts. She mentioned you're heavily involved. His teal eyes flicked to the swirling ball of black-tinged chakra. You seem to be experimenting with new power. Naruto let the Rasengan dissipate. Long story, Gaara. Things are complicated. Gaara studied him. They often are. He paused, then added quietly, there's a rumor among the allied nations that the shinobi world faces a threat beyond our understanding. The 5 Kage want answers. Naruto's stomach sank. So the rumors have spread beyond Konoha? Gaara nodded. Raikage is agitated, suspecting it's some leftover Otsutsuki threat. Mizukage is worried about trade disruptions if portals appear near shipping routes. All of them are anxious for a formal briefing. Naruto rubbed his neck. They'll want me there, I guess. Yes, Gaara said calmly. You should attend. Your insight, whatever you know, will help us prepare. Naruto let out a long breath, trying not to think of how the elders might twist this. I'll be there. Before Gaara departed, he rested a hand on Naruto's shoulder, a rare display of camaraderie from the usually stoic Kage. You once saved me from darkness. If you face a new darkness yourself, remember you're not alone. Naruto smiled, touched. Thanks, Gaara. Noon, Hokage's office, pre-summit meeting. The atmosphere in Tsunade's chamber was tense. Gaara stood near the window. Sakura, Shikamaru, and Sasuke were to one side. Naruto arrived just as Tsunade was finalizing notes. Good, you're here, Tsunade said briskly. We'll be meeting with the other Kage soon. They're expecting an update on the rifts. Naruto nodded, trying to ignore the weight of Sasuke's gaze. He knows I'm still hiding the dragon. Meanwhile, Sakura offered a small encouraging nod. Kakashi, leaning against the wall, spoke up. Reports indicate the rifts are sporadic. Some days, none. Other times, we get multiple sightings. No clear pattern. Gaara added, Sanagakure's scouts have also observed strange fluctuations in desert areas. No visible rifts yet, but the energy signature is similar. Tsunade pressed her palms on the desk. This is bigger than just Konoha. We need unity like we had during the Fourth Great War. But the difference here is we don't even know our enemy's shape. At that, Naruto clenched his fists. He yearned to shout about the corrupted monarch, the robed messenger, the dire warning. But his fear of the council's backlash silenced him. Glancing at Sasuke, he caught a faint nod, urging him to speak up anyway. Naruto sucked in a breath. There is an enemy, I just don't have solid proof yet. All eyes turned to him. Gaara's expression remained calm, but the rest looked either puzzled or alarmed. Tsunade's brow furrowed. Explain. Naruto mustered his courage. We've had an encounter. A messenger from another realm mentioned something called a corrupted monarch. It's planning a full-scale invasion. An uneasy ripple spread through the room. Shikamaru's eyes sharpened. That's a serious claim. Do you have any details? Naruto shook his head. Not many, but I'm sure the rifts are just the beginning. The creatures that have come through there only the smallest wave. If we don't prepare, the shinobi world could be swallowed whole. Tsunade studied him intently. Naruto, why are we only hearing this now? He set his jaw. Because, I wanted to be sure. I still don't have tangible evidence, just the messenger's words. But if the Allied summit is tomorrow, they need a warning, right? A heavy silence. Finally, Gaara nodded. We should share this with the other Kage. Even minimal intelligence is better than none. Sasuke spoke up quietly. We can't blindly accept the word of an unknown intruder, but ignoring it entirely would be foolish. Tsunade exhaled. Very well. At tomorrow's summit, we'll brief them. We can't hide from this threat. The council will likely object, but that's my problem to handle. Naruto offered a small, relieved smile. Even partial acceptance was a step forward. Evening, Konoha streets, just before the summit. While official travel arrangements were made for the Kage and their entourages, Naruto wandered the streets. Torchlights flickered in the twilight, and shinobi patrolled with watchful eyes. Tension gripped the village. Everyone felt the looming crisis, though not all knew the specifics. Amid the bustle, Naruto spotted Hinata slipping out of the Hyuga compound. He jogged over, heart lifting. "Hinata." She turned, eyes warm and relieved to see him. "Naruto-kun, I was about to look for you." They stepped aside into a quieter corner near a cherry blossom tree. Pink petals drifted on the night breeze. For a moment, it felt like old times, just the two of them, a fleeting sense of peace. "Have you been all right?" she asked softly. "Rumor says the village is on high alert again. Something about a big summit?" Naruto nodded, explaining the brief outline. The potential invasion, the cage gathering, his plan to warn them. Hinata listened, eyes widening with each detail. "That's terrifying," she murmured, but her voice held steady. "I'm proud of you for speaking up, even without all the evidence." He smiled ruefully. "Tsunade's not thrilled, but at least we're not burying our heads in the sand." Hinata hesitated, then gently touched his arm. "Naruto-kun, if there's anything I can do, please tell me. I don't want to be left behind. I want to stand by your side." He caught a glimpse of the fierceness in her eyes, the same spark he'd seen during the war, the same spirit that had made her confess her love in the heat of battle. Impulse flared in him again. He stepped closer, curling a hand around her waist. She let out a tiny gasp as he leaned in. Their lips met in a soft, lingering kiss under the drifting petals. A comforting warmth blossomed in his chest. All the chaos and uncertainty faded for a moment, overshadowed by the quiet intimacy between them. When they broke apart, Hinata's cheeks glowed pink. She smiled shyly, pressing a hand over her racing heart. I. Naruto chuckled. "You don't have to say anything, just, thanks for being here." Her pale eyes shone with devotion. Always, midnight, outside the village walls. Sasuke had assigned himself the role of last-minute security, insisting on scanning the perimeter. Naruto, restless, offered to join him. They walked in silence, occasionally exchanging glances. The land stretched dark and quiet beyond Konoha's walls. Eventually, Sasuke spoke. "The Allied Summit is tomorrow. If this corrupted monarch is real, the nations will mobilize. That means conflict on a scale we might not have seen since the Fourth War." Naruto looked at the moonlit treetops. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that. We're all tired of war." Sasuke's gaze shifted toward Naruto. "Any more visits from your robed friend?" Naruto shook his head. "No, but I'm expecting something soon. If they're serious about an invasion, they might wait until we're vulnerable." Sasuke gave a low grunt of agreement. "Just watch yourself. The elders are still sniffing around." They halted near a rocky outcrop, a vantage point overlooking a small stream. Naruto kicked a loose pebble off the edge. "You still think I'm crazy for keeping that dragon around?" Sasuke didn't answer immediately. After a moment, he said, "I think it's risky, but I also think you might be onto something, learning how to control them, or at least communicate. If they can be allies, we'd gain an advantage. If not, we'll do what we must." Naruto breathed out. That was probably as close to approval as he'd get from Sasuke. "Thanks." They headed back to the village gates, parted ways quietly. Another sleepless night awaited Naruto, haunted by half-formed nightmares of a realm full of dragons and something darker lurking in the shadows, a presence whose eyes burned with malevolent gold. Early morning, the Allied Shinobi Summit begins. Konoha's largest conference hall teemed with shinobi from various villages. Seated at a grand circular table were the 5 Tsunade of the Leaf, Gaara of the Sand, the Raikage of the Cloud, the Mizukage Terumi of the Mist, and the Tsuchikage Kuretsuchi of the Stone. Their top advisors or bodyguards flanked each leader. Naruto stood behind Tsunade's chair, arms folded, trying to hide his nerves. The tension was palpable. Raikage glowered around the room, impatient. "We've wasted enough time. If there's an imminent threat, we need facts." Tsunade nodded. "Agreed. Let's get straight to it. We've been experiencing dimensional rifts, from which draconic creatures emerge. Our investigations confirm these occurrences are increasing across all nations." Gaara spoke calmly. "Sanagakure has felt the tremors underground. We suspect more rifts may form soon." Terumi frowned. "Dragons, as if the shinobi world hasn't dealt with enough nightmares." Kuretsuchi tapped her finger on the table. "What's causing them?" That was Naruto's cue. He stepped forward, clearing his throat. "We don't have a definitive cause, but we've received a warning about something called the Corrupted Monarch, a powerful entity planning to invade our world. These rifts might be scouting portals or footholds for a larger incursion." A murmur spread around the table. The Raikage snorted, "And your proof is?" Naruto's fists clenched. "I don't have solid proof yet, just the messenger's words. But ignoring it could be deadly. We need to unify our defenses now, like we did against the Akatsuki and the Otsutsuki." The Raikage was about to retort when Gaara spoke up. "In the Fourth War, we united under uncertain circumstances, and it saved us. This may be the same kind of threat." Mei nodded slowly, her brow creased in worry. "We can't risk being unprepared. Even rumors of a larger force mean we should coordinate." Kuretsuchi let out a sigh. "Fine. But we need a plan. How do we fight an enemy that can appear anywhere?" Tsunade exchanged a glance with Kakashi, who just arrived. "We propose forming specialized teams in each village, trained for rapid deployment to rift sites. We'll also develop a joint sensor network to detect anomalies early." Raikage grunted, still skeptical. "And who leads this operation?" Naruto felt Tsunade's gaze on him. She said, "Naruto Uzumaki will coordinate the Leaf's response. He has direct experience fighting these creatures. Other villages can nominate their top shinobi as well." A wave of tension rippled through the room. Naruto was well known, but some leaders still saw him as unpredictable. Nonetheless, memories of his pivotal role in ending the war held weight. "All right," the Raikage finally muttered, crossing his arms. "We'll tentatively support this plan. But if these rumors turn out false, we won't hold back complaining." Naruto exhaled in relief. Even that partial acceptance felt like a small victory. The cage hammered out final details. Training schedules, how to share intel, possible joint exercises. By the time the meeting adjourned, the sun stood high and bright. As the hall emptied, Naruto's shoulders sagged. He'd half expected the cage to dismiss his claims outright. At least they were taking steps. Midday. Courtyard outside the summit. Naruto walked out into the courtyard, blinking at the daylight. His mind buzzed with everything that had been decided. Now Konoha would form a specialized rift response unit, and other villages would follow suit. It was a start. He caught sight of Gaara and Kuretsuchi talking quietly under a large oak, likely discussing strategy for their respective villages. Meanwhile, the Raikage barked orders at his subordinates. A flurry of diplomatic chaos reigned around them. A gentle hand touched Naruto's arm. Sakura. She'd been assisting Tsunade, but now she slipped away. "That went better than I expected." Naruto nodded. "Yeah, but I'm still worried. We're basically reacting blindly." Sakura's eyes flicked with concern. "If only we had a real lead on this corrupted monarch. Something we could investigate more directly." A memory pricked Naruto's mind. The robed figure's mention of the Dragon Realm, or some dimension behind these portals. Was it possible to breach it intentionally? A crazy idea, but... He opened his mouth to speak when Ino strolled over, smirking. "Hey, heroes. Done saving the world for the day?" Naruto chuckled despite his tension. "Not even close." Sakura teased, "I'm sure you're about to go gather some intel, right?" Ino flipped her ponytail. "Of course. The Yamanaka clan can do more than arrange flowers, you know." They all laughed, a tiny respite in the storm. Then something tugged at Naruto's senses like a faint cry from far away, echoing in his mind. He froze, brow creasing. "Hey, you okay?" Sakura asked, noticing his sudden stillness. Naruto closed his eyes, focusing. That sense of connection to his hidden dragon flared like a mental distress signal. Fear, panic, pain. "No, something's wrong." Ino frowned. "Wrong how?" "It's the creature," he whispered, not even realizing he'd called it that in front of them. But time pressed. "It's in trouble, I can sense it." Sakura and Ino exchanged startled glances. "You mean, one of those dragons?" "Naruto, what?" He didn't wait to explain. Heart pounding, he sprinted away from the courtyard, ignoring curious stares. Ino and Sakura called after him, quickly following. Early afternoon, the forest clearing. By the time Naruto reached the familiar clearing, he found chaos. Smoke drifted in the air. The dragon lay sprawled on its side, pinned by dozens of sealing tags that glowed with intense, binding chakra. Blood trickled from fresh wounds. Surrounding it were a group of masked shinobi Anbu, or Root by their silent formation. One, presumably the squad leader, stepped forward, forming another seal. Naruto's fury ignited. "Stop," he roared, landing heavily. The ground cracked under his feet. The masked figures looked up. One hissed, "It's him. Proceed with the capture." Naruto's aura flared dangerously, black scales flickering across his arms. "I said stop." Before they could respond, he blitzed forward with startling speed, slamming a fist into the nearest shinobi's chest. They flew backward, landing hard. Another swung a blade, but Naruto twisted aside, delivering a punishing roundhouse kick. Two more tried to reinforce the binding tags on the dragon. Naruto formed a Rasengan, this time letting the draconic energy mix in a measured swirl. The sphere crackled with black flame edges. He slammed it into the ground near them. A shockwave erupted, flinging them aside and destroying half the tags. "No one hurts. What's mine?" Naruto snarled, voice echoing with raw power. The dragon, partially freed, gasped for breath, eyes rolling in pain. The masked shinobi regrouped, forming a tight circle. Their leader spoke through a distorted mask. "Naruto Uzumaki, we're authorized to neutralize any threat to Konoha. This beast is a threat." Naruto's chest heaved. "I told you there's more going on here." They charged him in perfect synchronization. Naruto met them head-on, tapping into his Kyuubi chakra as well. The swirling mix of orange fox aura and black draconic energy gave him a terrifying silhouette, eyes burning gold. He struck like a whirlwind, fists and kicks landing with bone-shaking force. Despite their skill, the masked shinobi struggled. One tried to pin him with a lightning-infused net, but Naruto roared, unleashing a pulse of dragon-charged chakra that shredded it. Another launched a barrage of senbon from behind, only to have Naruto vanish in a burst of speed and reappear at their flank, delivering a punishing blow. The clearing was a blur of jutsu, steel, and roaring chakra. The ground quaked under the onslaught, trees splintering from stray shockwaves. Amid the battle, Naruto saw Sakura and Ino arrive, eyes wide at the carnage. Without hesitation, they joined the fray. Sakura knocked two attackers flying with a single chakra-enhanced punch. Ino used her mind transfer skill to stun another, rendering them immobile long enough for Naruto to knock them out. The leader, realizing they were outmatched, snarled, "Fall back. Abort mission." But Naruto blocked their escape route, sending clones to corral them. A few managed to retreat into the forest, vanishing with flickers of movement. The rest lay unconscious or bound by Sakura's sealing tags. Finally, the clearing fell silent except for the crackle of burnt earth and the dragon's ragged breaths. Naruto rushed to it, ripping away the remaining tags. It whimpered, blood pooling under it, his heart lurched. Ino knelt beside him, eyes flicking with concern. "Naruto, this is insane. You really were sheltering it." Sakura, panting, also approached. "We need to treat its wounds quickly." She pulled out a small med kit. Naruto's hands trembled as he channeled healing chakra again, tears threatening to burn in his eyes. I'm sorry," he whispered to the dragon. "I should have protected you better." Sakura and Ino worked in tandem, stabilizing the creature's vitals. A tense hush enveloped the clearing. After a few minutes, the dragon's breathing steadied, though it remained too weak to stand. Sakura met Naruto's gaze. "We can keep it alive for now, but it's badly hurt." Ino swallowed. "Naruto, what do we do now? Those guys might report back. The elders could be behind this." He clenched his jaw. "We have to get it out of here. Somewhere safe, maybe even out of the village borders." Sakura exchanged a loaded look with Ino. "You realize what that implies? You'd be actively going against the council, maybe even Lady Tsunade if she's forced to comply with them." Naruto's voice shook, but resolve etched in his features. "I won't let it be hunted. And if we can learn about the Dragon Realm, it might help us stop the corrupted monarch. I can't do that if it's dead." Ino gently placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "We're with you, but we better move fast." Sakura nodded. "Right. Let's try to wake it enough to walk." Naruto pressed a trembling palm against the dragon's bloodied scales. He could sense its mind in the haze of pain. Gently, he funneled a calming wave of draconic aura into it, coaxing it to hold on, to trust him. Slowly, it raised its head, eyes full of exhaustion but also recognition. With an effort, it staggered upright, leaning heavily against Naruto's shoulder. A mixture of relief and sorrow filled him. Relief it was alive. Sorrow that it had been hurt in his own village. "Ino, help me with its weight," he said. She slipped an arm under the dragon's flank, though it dwarfed her frame. "You better do the heavy lifting, hero," she teased, trying to lighten the grim mood. Sakura kept scanning the surroundings, alert for any reinforcements from the masked squad. "We need to leave, now." Together, they guided the wounded beast deeper into the forest, aiming for an old, disused path that led away from Konoha. Twilight approached, the skies tinting orange and purple. No time to linger. Naruto could practically feel the village lockdown about to snap into place once word of the attack spread. Dusk. Edge of a sealed rift. They eventually reached an area known for hosting one of the earliest rifts, now sealed but still crackling with residual energy. A black scorch mark marred the ground, the air thick with leftover chakra. Naruto paused, feeling a strange pull from this place like a gateway half ajar. Ino's eyes widened. "Do you feel that? It's like something wants to open." Sakura bit her lip. "Is it safe?" Naruto glanced at the dragon, which lifted its head. A faint resonance pulsed between it and the rift's remnants. Then, as if on cue, the air shimmered. The black scorch line rippled, a faint swirl of violet light flickering into existence. Naruto's heart pounded. "Is it opening again?" Sakura stepped back, protective instincts on high. "We're not going through, are we?" Ino, eyes locked on the swirling energy, said, "Better question. Can we close it again if it fully opens?" The dragon let out a labored growl, staggering closer to the flickering portal. Naruto followed, the sense of connection intensifying. A wild idea sparked in his mind. Maybe the dragon was trying to return to its home realm for healing. If that was even possible. He swallowed. "We might not get another chance like this." Sakura's eyes snapped to him. "Wait, are you serious? We don't know what's on the other side." Ino mirrored the alarm. "Naruto, you can't just dive into another dimension." He met their gazes, determination burning in his. "That robed figure said if I don't ascend, or whatever, the corrupted monarch will destroy everything. We need answers. And maybe the only place to find them is wherever these dragons come from." They looked at each other, hearts hammering. The portal shimmered more strongly, as though responding to Naruto's presence. In the distance, a faint roar echoed like a call from another world. Sakura clenched her fists. "We can't just let you go alone." Naruto's mind raced. Bringing them could be dangerous. He had no clue what awaited beyond. But leaving them behind? Could he handle this alone, or push them away when they so clearly wanted to stand by him? The dragon croaked weakly, leaning against the swirling air. Thin arcs of energy crackled. It seemed to sense a route home. Naruto inhaled. "All right, but if things go bad, we come back immediately, understood?" Ino took a resolute breath. "We're in this together." Sakura gave a firm nod, fear and courage mingling in her eyes. "Let's do it." Naruto stepped forward, placing his hand into the violet swirl. An electric jolt coursed up his arm, but he pushed through. The vortex parted like a curtain, revealing a murky glimpse of red skies and jagged stone spires. The dragon stumbled in, half vanishing from sight. With hearts pounding, Naruto, Sakura, and Ino followed. The portal swallowed them in a rush of swirling light. The last thing Naruto saw was the towering trees of the shinobi world fading behind him. Moments later, the Dragon Realm, outskirts of a desolate plateau. The group stumbled out onto cracked ground, knees buckling from the dimensional shift. A harsh wind whipped at their clothes. They rose, blinking to adjust to the alien sun, a crimson orb hanging in a swirling sky. A sprawling plateau stretched before them, littered with the ruins of massive stone arches. The air tasted metallic, laced with faint sulfur. In the distance, dark silhouettes soared dragons, dozens of them, circling the horizon. Sakura's voice trembled in awe. "We're not in Konoha anymore." Ino gulped. "This place feels so strange." Naruto's chest tightened. A wave of dizziness hit him as the draconic aura within surged, resonating with the environment. It was as if the entire realm recognized him. The battered dragon beside him let out a weak but triumphant cry, limping forward across the cracked earth. "Guess we made it," Naruto murmured. Then he scanned the horizon, half expecting an ambush. The robed figure could be anywhere here. Or something worse. Sakura reached for Naruto's hand, steadying herself. Stay close. We don't know what's out there. Ino rubbed her arms, chilled by the eerie wind. This place looks like a battlefield. Indeed, scattered bones of giant creatures lay half buried in the dust. Broken columns rose like the ribs of a fallen titan. A swirling vortex of clouds rumbled overhead, occasionally lit by crimson lightning. The dragon guided them across the plateau, though it could barely walk. Naruto supported it, worried about its injuries. He felt compelled forward, as though an unseen force tugged at him. Then, a roar shattered the quiet, a deep, resonant cry that shook the ground. Another creature emerged from behind a ruined arch. A hulking dragon, bigger than anything they'd seen come through the rifts. Scales black as obsidian, eyes glowing with primal ferocity. It locked gazes with Naruto. A tidal wave of energy burst between them. Naruto's chest clenched. The swirling aura within him responded, blazing with intensity. Careful! Sakura cried, stepping in front of him defensively. Ino ready to kunai, though she looked dwarfed by the monstrous dragon's presence. But the giant dragon didn't strike immediately. Instead, it let out another roar, lower this time like a challenge or a test. Naruto felt the meaning thrumming through his bones. Prove your right to stand in the dragon realm. The wounded dragon at Naruto's side tried to roar in defiance, but it collapsed, too weak. Naruto's anger flared, everything in him rebelled against allowing his ally to be threatened. His eyes flicked to Sakura and Ino. They nodded, bracing for a fight. Naruto stepped forward, scales rippling across his arms, letting the draconic energy intensify. He met the colossal dragon's gaze unflinchingly. Let's see if you recognize your monarch, he whispered, voice carrying a new depth. The massive beast hissed, stepping closer, each footfall shaking the ground. A wave of scorching heat radiated off its body. Then, with a final roar, it lunged, jaws wide, wings creating a hurricane-force gust. Naruto darted forward, forging a black-flamed Rasengan in his palm. The wind whipped at his hair, the ground quaked, but he planted his feet. The moment the beast's jaws loomed overhead, he thrust the Rasengan upward. A thunderous collision. The blast of chakra roiled. The dragon reared back, shrieking. Sakura and Ino sprang into motion, Sakura hammering a punch into the dragon's claw, while Ino launched a precision mind-body disruption to stagger it. Yet the beast's overwhelming size made it formidable. Naruto, heart-pounding, allowed more of the realm's power to flow through him. He roared, unleashing a pulse of raw draconic chakra. The black scales on his arms extended, forming partial armor across his torso. A swirl of black flame danced around him. The giant dragon hesitated, sensing the rising power. For a heartbeat, it locked eyes with Naruto again, golden draconic gaze meeting golden human eyes. Naruto channeled every ounce of his determination into that glare, demanding submission. With a final roar, the beast relented, dropping onto all fours, head bowed, an unmistakable gesture of deference. The impact of its massive body shook the plateau. Sakura and Ino gaped in shock, breathing hard. The battered dragon at Naruto's side let out a quiet, rasping cry, almost like relief. Naruto stood there, chest heaving, black scales still shimmering. In that moment, he understood a fragment of the prophecy he'd been ignoring. He was the Dragon Monarch. The creatures here instinctively recognized his dominion, though some might resist or challenge him. They couldn't deny the power thrumming in his veins. Sakura approached cautiously, eyes huge. Naruto, you made it, Bo. Ino, catching her breath, said in a trembling voice, this is insane. We're in a world where dragons obey you. Naruto's heart thundered. He felt an odd mix of triumph and fear. Seems that way. But let's not forget there's still a corrupted monarch out there somewhere. As if on cue, distant lightning crackled, illuminating the horizon with a blood-red flash. A sinister presence seemed to flicker at the edge of vision, making Naruto's skin prickle. The same malevolent aura he sensed from the robed figure's threat. He clenched his fists, gaze set on the looming spires. We have to find answers about the corrupted monarch, about these rifts. And we have to ensure these dragons don't destroy our home. This realm. He paused, looking around at the battered ruins and swirling skies. It's the key. Sakura and Ino nodded, determination rallying. The wounded dragon let out a feeble croon, hobbling toward the giant that had submitted, as if seeking protection. The bigger one carefully lowered its head, allowing the smaller to lean on it. Strange solidarity among dragons. Naruto gazed at them both, a protective surge in his chest. "We'll take care of you," he murmured. Then, to his companions, "Let's explore. Carefully. We might find a clue about how to stop the corrupted monarch." With that, they pressed deeper into the dragon realm's desolate expanse, the massive dragon lumbering behind as a silent escort. Jagged ruins, swirling crimson clouds, and the resonant roars of distant beasts painted a haunting backdrop. Despite the alien danger, Naruto felt a spark of hope. For the first time, he wasn't just reacting, he was taking the fight to the source. If the shinobi world had a future free from this threat, it would start with them, here, in the heart of the dragon realm. His gaze hardened. "Watch me, corrupted monarch. I'll break every chain you've bound these creatures with. I am Naruto Uzumaki, the Dragon Monarch, and I won't let my world burn." Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. Shadows of War. The Dragon Realm, near the ruined temple grounds. A crimson sun hung low in the swirling sky, painting the broken world in shades of copper and black. Naruto led the way across rugged terrain, flanked by Sakura and Ino. The ground cracked beneath their steps, revealing glowing veins of molten rock below, like the very bones of this realm were alive with smoldering power. Two dragons trailed behind them, one a massive, obsidian-scaled behemoth bowing to Naruto's aura, and the smaller, wounded dragon limping in its shadow. Each gust of wind carried ominous echoes, distant roars, the crash of collapsing ruins, and the unsettling hush of something deeper moving below the surface. A sense of watchfulness pressed on them. The dragon realm felt like a long-abandoned battlefield haunted by restless spirits. Ino shielded her eyes from the swirling grit. "This place is brutal. How far do we have to go?" Naruto paused at the crest of a rocky incline. Ahead, the remains of what looked like a temple sprawled in jagged silhouettes, massive columns toppled like broken bones. He felt a sharp tug in his core, that same gravitational pull of the draconic aura that had led them here. "I'm not sure," he answered. "But the power is stronger there. It might be where we'll find answers, or a trap." Sakura's eyes flicked to the temple ruins. "We're in a world we barely understand. We should stay close to the dragons, maybe they know the territory." Naruto nodded, turning to the behemoth dragon. He reached out mentally, letting a fraction of his own draconic energy flow. An impression flashed back. Relics. A place of old guardians. Danger. Naruto inhaled sharply. They weren't just stepping onto random stones, this was a site of ancient significance. "Let's be careful," he said, voice hushed. "Something's waiting for us." Temple courtyard. Moments later they ventured deeper, stepping over broken pillars carved with symbols that looked centuries old. The courtyard opened into a broad circle lined by shattered statues. Once, they might have been grand effigies of dragons, now they lay in rubble. The massive dragon rumbled, pushing the smaller one onward. Naruto could sense its anxiety. It clearly recognized these grounds as sacred or forbidden. Ino brushed dust from a tall, half-toppled monument. "These inscriptions, they're not any shinobi language." She ran her fingers over the strange glyphs. "But I swear, some of these lines look like seals." Sakura knelt by another fallen stone, scanning the etched lines. "Seals? You think it's a jutsu formula?" Ino shrugged. "Could be. Or some ancient draconic script. It's beyond me, but it feels like something we'd see in a summoning contract, massive in scale." Naruto placed a hand on the largest statue's base, letting his aura resonate. Flashes of memory not his own darted through his mind. Dragons standing in rows, an imposing figure crowned with horns, chanting in a booming voice. A feeling of solemn ritual. He yanked his hand away, breath-catching. This temple was used for some kind of binding ceremony. Sakura's brow furrowed. Binding what, exactly? Maybe the power of the Dragon Monarch, Naruto muttered. Or something that opposed it. Deep in the ruins they passed through an archway into a gloom-shrouded corridor, the dragon at their heels scraping claws against the stone floor. Occasional torches of ghostly blue flame sprang to life as they moved forward, lighting the path. The air felt heavier, tinged with dread. Naruto took point, scanning the darkness. His senses flickered with new awareness, a sense that something moved ahead, just out of sight. Sakura stiffened. "I hear scraping." Ino pressed a kunai into her palm. we're not alone. Suddenly, a reptilian shriek echoed. From behind half-collapsed columns, smaller draconic creatures lunged forward. They were about the size of large wolves, with glowing eyes and ragged black scales clearly different from Naruto's dragons. Their aura felt corrupted, tinged with malevolence that twisted Naruto's stomach. Sakura kicked off the ground, driving a chakra-charged punch into the first attacker, smashing it against a wall. Ino sidestepped the second, focusing her mind transfer jutsu with quick precision. It froze mid-lunge, giving Naruto time to slam a black-flamed Rasengan into it, dissolving it into ash. A chorus of shrieks echoed down the corridor, more creatures scampering along the walls and ceiling like savage reptiles. The large dragon behind them roared, lashing its tail, crushing two of the beasts at once. The wounded dragon struggled, but it mustered a raspy roar, baring teeth at anything that ventured close. In the rush of battle, Naruto felt the draconic energy surge. He summoned a cluster of shadow clones to hold the passage, each brandishing black-tinged Rasengans. The corridor lit with bursts of dark flame and swirling chakra as the corrupted dragons fell under the onslaught. Yet more kept coming, a living tide of scales and claws. Where are they all coming from? Sakura shouted, slamming her fist into a half-dozen that charged at once. The floor cracked from her impact. Ino scowled, launching a hail of shuriken. This place is infested. Naruto tightened his jaw. We fight through. We need to see what's deeper in this temple. Pushing forward, they carved a path. The large dragon battered aside creatures that tried to flank them. A nerve-shredding tension mounted with every roar and clash of claws. Finally, after what felt like an endless barrage, the corridor emptied into a grand chamber. The last of the corrupted dragons either lay defeated or fled into the shadows. Silence fell, broken only by the labored breathing of the group. Grand Chamber. Temple Heart. The chamber spanned a massive dome supported by towering pillars, half of them crumbled. A soft, eerie glow emanated from a giant circular seal etched into the floor, its lines pulsed with rhythmic arcs of pale light. Naruto, Sakura, and Ino stepped closer, hearts pounding at the spectacle. Both dragons halted at the periphery, clearly nervous. The seal's design shimmered with haunting beauty, swirling like a living tapestry of runes. Sakura knelt to inspect the nearest glyph. I've never seen anything like this. It looks almost alive. Ino nodded, equally fascinated. If this is a binding seal, it's on a scale beyond anything from the shinobi world. Naruto wiped sweat from his brow. The closer he got, the more intense the pull in his chest became, as if the seal called to him. I can feel it, like it's waiting for me to activate it. He took a slow step onto the ring of light. The second his foot crossed the boundary, the entire seal blazed brighter. A deep hum resonated in the temple walls, and the overhead dome flickered with twisting shapes, shadows of dragons swirling across the stone. Naruto. Sakura called, alarmed. Be careful, but Naruto couldn't back away. He raised his hand, black scales creeping over his forearm. The power welling inside him blended with the seal's energy. It felt as if ancient consciousness stirred, recognizing its monarch. Images whirled through his mind, a grand assembly of dragons bowing to a crowned figure. A terrible war, black flames devouring the horizon. Two opposing forces, one clad in swirling black scales, the other in a rotting shell of darkness. Then a voice thundered across the chamber, rattling the pillars. The monarch's throne lies unclaimed. The corrupted one spreads his rot through the realms. Will you accept your destiny and quell the coming storm, or let all worlds burn? Naruto clutched his head, staggering. Sakura and Ino rushed forward but hesitated at the seal's edge, unsure if they could cross safely. He forced a ragged breath. I won't let the shinobi world be destroyed. The voice boomed again, echoing in every direction. Then prove your dominion. A blinding flash erupted from the seal, throwing everyone back. Naruto shielded his eyes. When the light subsided, the massive chamber had changed. The floor around them was gone, replaced by swirling shadows. Only a narrow ring of stone remained beneath their feet. The pillars and walls seemed to stretch into an infinite void. Trial in the void. Sakura's paw, she gasped, finding herself separated from Ino by a gap of swirling blackness. The large dragon stood near Naruto, while she herself hovered on a fragment of the chamber floor. Naruto. She called. Where are we? He stood at the center, eyes glowing gold, the seal still pulsing underfoot. A trial, maybe, he responded, voice echoing strangely. The air felt thick, and her heart pounded faster. A presence loomed in the darkness. Crimson eyes burned to life, and a massive silhouette slowly emerged, a monstrous draconic form, winged and drenched in shadows. Its jaws parted to reveal rows of fangs. It stared at Naruto, then swung its gaze at Sakura. She swallowed fear and readied a chakra-infused punch. I can't let him face this alone. But when she tried to jump to his platform, invisible barriers crackled. She realized the test might be for him alone. From across the void, Ino shouted, "Naruto, watch out!" The shadow dragon roared, lashing forward. Naruto braced himself, conjuring swirling black flames around his fists. The entire realm trembled as they clashed. Sparks of unnatural energy lit the darkness. Each blow from the dragon sent shockwaves through the fragmented floor. Naruto countered with blasts of draconic chakra, swirling Rasengan merges, and shadow clone feints. Yet despite his overwhelming power, the creature matched him blow for blow. A tension knotted in Sakura's chest, seeing him fight at full tilt with scales shimmering across his torso and shoulders. She'd never seen him so strong, or so close to the edge. Ino reached out telepathically, "Sakura, if we can't join physically, maybe we can support him from here." Sakura's heart pounded. "I have some medical ninjutsu that might help if I can channel it across this barrier." She pressed her palms to the barrier's surface, eyes closed, focusing on Naruto's chakra signature. Ino did similarly, forming a seal for mental link. Together, they tried to funnel supportive energy, a patchwork of healing and clarity, across the invisible wall. Naruto felt it, the faint brush of soothing chakra. It steadied his heart, banishing some of the crushing weight that threatened to overwhelm him. With renewed resolve, he roared, channeling all of his draconic might into a single crescendo of power. "Shadow clones Rasengan barrage!" he cried, summoning a dozen clones, each forming a swirling sphere of black flame. They rushed the shadow dragon from every angle. The beast thrashed, roaring in pain as the clones smashed into its flanks and wings. In the final moment, Naruto leapt overhead, forging a colossal Rasengan crackling with draconic flames. He drove it straight down onto the creature's skull. A thunderous impact shook the void. The shadow dragon shrieked, then burst into ash like embers, scattering into the darkness. Panting, Naruto landed awkwardly, nearly collapsing from exertion. The swirling void vanished in a rush of cold air, returning the group to the temple's battered chamber. The pillars and floor reappeared, though now faintly illuminated by the seal's glow. After the trial, Sakura and Ino dashed to Naruto's side. The large dragon hovered protectively, while the wounded one slumped in the shadows. "Are you okay?" Sakura asked, voice trembling with relief. She pressed her palm to his chest, pushing a small wave of healing chakra. Naruto nodded weakly, sweat streaming down his face. "I'm good. Just too many big fights in a row." Ino let out a shaky laugh. "That was insane. I thought we'd lost you for a second." Naruto managed a breathless grin. "You're stuck with me." Then he turned, his eyes drawn to the now dormant seal. It no longer pulsed, as though it had expended its energy. "Whatever test that was, I guess we passed." A slow, rumbling voice echoed in the chamber, gentler than before, yet still ancient. "He who bears the monarch's soul has proven resolve. Yet the shadow stirs, and war looms." Naruto closed his eyes, absorbing the words. War looms. The same war threatened the shinobi world. The corrupted monarch was no mere boogeyman, he was real, and this temple recognized Naruto's burden to stop him. The voice faded, leaving only the distant drip of water from cracks in the ceiling. A hush settled. A moment of respite, they needed a break. Carefully, they guided the dragons to an alcove sheltered from the rubble, near a small pool of strange, phosphorescent water. Naruto and Sakura helped clean the smaller dragon's wounds, which had reopened during the fight. Ino kept watch, scanning for any more hostile creatures. When they finished, a hush lingered. Darkness spread beyond the faint light of the temple entrance. Something about the stillness tugged at Naruto. He felt raw exhaustion. His limbs shook from the recent battle. He noticed Sakura's trembling fingers as well. She was pushing herself too hard. Ino's breath hitched every few seconds, adrenaline still high. Without warning, the battered dragon laid its head near Naruto's side. A faint purr-like rumble emerged from its throat, gratitude and trust. Naruto's chest tightened with unexpected tenderness. Sakura let out a gentle laugh. I think it's thanking you. Naruto stroked the dragon's muzzle. Yeah, guess we're partners now. He glanced at the other dragon, massive, stoic, but watchful. It nodded, if such a gesture was possible, as though acknowledging Naruto's acceptance. In that moment, with the threat quieted, Naruto exhaled the tension of the last hours. They were stuck in a hostile realm, but they weren't alone. Quiet interlude. Emotional undercurrents. Sakura's paused again. She watched Naruto carefully. His eyes shone with that unwavering, unbreakable spirit she'd admired for so long. But there was something new, this draconic confidence, a magnetic pull that made her stomach flutter. She remembered the heated moments they'd shared back in Konoha, the confusion over Ino's kisses, Hinata's confessions, her own tangled feelings. Now, in this alien darkness, that complexity felt sharper. She yearned to hold him close, reassure him he didn't have to bear this alone. Naruto must have sensed her gaze. Their eyes met, and a soft breath caught in her throat. He reached for her hand, his fingers curling around hers. The warmth of his grip lit a spark under her skin. Ino cleared her throat lightly, stepping into the space between them. She wore a wry smile. Hey, big hero, don't forget the rest of us. We all nearly died back there. Naruto chuckled, gently tugging her closer. I know, Ino. Thanks for jumping in with those illusions. We couldn't have handled that many creatures alone. She smirked, hooking a finger under his chin. I suppose you owe me a big favor when we get back. Leaning forward, she pressed a quick, mischievous kiss to his lips. Sakura's cheeks grew warm, a mild surge of jealousy mingling with the odd camaraderie forming among them. Then Sakura, unable to hold back, shifted in. She slid her hand behind Naruto's neck, capturing his lips in a slow, tender kiss. His breath hitched, and she felt his heartbeat racing. Their lips parted after a moment, leaving her face flushed, but an undeniable warmth filling her chest. They were in the middle of a ruined temple in another dimension, with two dragons watching them, yet the moment felt achingly real. Ino gave a theatrical sigh. What kind of crazy love triangle, or square, is this? Sakura shrugged, words failing her. She could only laugh softly, despite the swirling tension. Naruto's face colored, but a small grin tugged at his lips. This was messy, but it was them. Meanwhile, far away, a dark citadel is shift in perspective. In a distant region of the Dragon Realm, a colossal citadel of jagged spires jutted from a blackened plain. The sky above churned with red lightning. At the highest tower, a robed figure knelt before a throne carved from obsidian. Shadows writhed around the throne's occupant, a shape with black horns curving like twisted branches, gold eyes glowing with malice. This was the corrupted monarch. The robed figure spoke in a wavering tone. My lord, the new monarch has arrived. He stirs the old powers in the Temple of Binding. A raspy laugh reverberated through the hall. So the upstart found his way to our realm, excellent. The corrupted monarch rose, shadowy tendrils swirling at its feet. Let him gather what remnants he can. The day of war approaches, and we shall sweep across both worlds. The shinobi world will kneel to true power. A hush fell. The robed messenger bowed lower. Shall I dispatch more scouts to test him? Patience, the monarch hissed. We shall let him witness the devastation that awaits. Let him taste victory, believe he can save them, then we will tear it all away. Lightning flared across the skyline, illuminating the twisted grin on the corrupted monarch's face. Shadows churned, devouring all light in the hall. Naruto's group, moving on back in the temple's alcove, Naruto stretched, pushing aside the unsettling chill that crawled along his spine. He couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible lurked just beyond the edges of awareness, like an unseen eye studying their every move. Sakura tidied her medical supplies. We should keep going. We've learned the temple is some sort of binding place for the monarch's power, and you've cleared its trial. Ino nodded, scanning the darkness, but we still don't know how to stop the corrupted monarch's invasion. Naruto stood, resting a hand on the smaller dragon's side. I have a hunch we'll find more altars or shrines like this scattered around. If we can activate them, Maybe I can unite the realm behind us or at least weaken the corrupted monarch's hold. Sakura exhaled. Sounds like a plan. Let's just not overextend ourselves. We're already exhausted. Ino smirked, though her face was lined with fatigue. Tired or not, we can't sit still in this place. It's too dangerous. Naruto turned to the giant dragon, silently conveying the question. Where next? A deep rumble emanated from the beast's chest. It stepped away from the temple interior, lumbering toward a passage that led outside. A swirl of acrid wind gusted in, carrying dust and ember-like sparks. Following the dragon's lead, they left the temple through a rear exit. The smaller wounded dragon followed shakily, each step a reminder of how close it came to death. Naruto stayed close, giving it occasional healing pulses. Outside the temple, twilit expanse, they emerged onto a high plateau overlooking a vast canyon. Red clouds churned overhead, and lightning flickered in the far distance. Sprawling across the canyon's floor lay the remains of an ancient city, crumbling towers and walls, half sunken in ash. Sakura sucked in a breath. It's huge. Were there once entire civilizations of dragons here? Ino gazed across the ruins. A city built by dragons? Or maybe by whoever ruled them centuries ago. Naruto remembered the illusions he'd seen during the binding trial. Grand halls filled with dragons bowing to a crowned figure. A civilization that thrived under the Dragon Monarch's reign, then fell to ruin. This city might hold more clues or more danger. He glanced at the dark horizon. The corrupted monarch's forces must have done this. If we can find survivors or uncorrupted clans, we might rally them before it's too late. The large dragon craned its neck, staring at Naruto as though verifying his conviction. The smaller one let out a low rumble, pressing closer to Naruto's side in a display of trust. Sakura touched Naruto's shoulder. We can't stay here. Let's move. The group traversed the rocky path, descending into the valley. As they went, they caught sight of more skeletal remains, massive ribs half buried in ash, shattered wings of stone. Echoes of a cataclysmic battle once raged here, even more massive than the war in their own world. An unwanted reunion. Enemy infiltration. Suddenly, Naruto stiffened. He felt a cold prickle at the base of his neck. A swirl of black wind appeared ahead, and from it stepped the very robed figure that had threatened him back in Konoha. The messenger of the corrupted monarch. Well, the figure rasped, the prodigal monarch roams our realm. Ino's eyes narrowed. That's the one? Sakura brought her fists up, chakra swirling. He's the messenger you mentioned, right? Naruto glared, power surging in his veins. You're the reason the shinobi world is in danger. If you think I'll just stand by. A hollow laugh. Bravery or foolishness? Perhaps both. Your presence here is an affront to my master. Turn back, or witness the devastation your defiance brings. Naruto clenched his fists. I won't abandon my world or the dragons you've corrupted. The robed figure hissed, summoning black energy around its arms. You meddle in forces beyond your comprehension. The corrupted monarch has already set his war machines in motion. Konoha will drown in dragonfire. Naruto's heart pounded with fury. Not if I stop him here, now. He launched forward in a burst of speed, forming a black-flamed Rasengan. The messenger sneered, swirling tendrils of dark energy that clashed with Naruto's strike, the shockwave rattling the canyon. Sakura and Ino sprang into action, flanking the robed figure. Ino tried to catch them in a mind transfer lock, but they dodged with unnatural quickness. Sakura's fist slammed into the ground, fracturing it, forcing the messenger to leap away. The large dragon roared, swiping its tail to corner the enemy. Yet each time it closed in, the figure vanished in a flicker of dark wind. Finally, Naruto feinted left with a shadow clone and reappeared behind the messenger, driving a scaled fist at its back. A grunt of pain escaped the robed figure as it was sent tumbling across the rocks. The messenger coughed, black blood spattering. You've grown stronger since we last met, but you know nothing of the real war. My master's armies are infinite. Soon, they will march on your pitiful shinobi world. Naruto advanced, eyes blazing. Then I'll fight them here, before they take one step into my home. The messenger stared, something like fear flickering in its eyes. You cannot. Already, multiple rifts open. Your precious village stands on the brink. With a low, mocking laugh, it melted into a swirl of shadowy wind, leaving only an echo. You will fail, monarch. And your people will burn. The wind died, and the canyon fell silent. Naruto trembled with pent-up rage, recalling glimpses of Konoha under attack in his nightmares. He felt Sakura and Ino's hands on his shoulders, grounding him. Ino's voice shook. It might be telling the truth. More rifts could be opening right now. Sakura looked up at the swirling red sky, heart-pounding. We can't be in two places at once. If Konoha is in danger, we need to go back. But what about this realm? If we leave, we lose the chance to gather allies here. Naruto closed his eyes, wrestling with the agonizing choice. He wanted to free these dragons from corruption, to prevent an invasion at its source. But if rifts opened en masse in the shinobi world, his friends Hinata, Kakashi, Tsunade, Sasuke, everyone was at risk. Decision and resolve. The large dragon let out a rumbling growl, as though sensing his conflict. Its gaze moved between the distant ruins and the swirling vortex that might lead back to Naruto's home dimension. Sakura placed a hand on his back, voice gentle but urgent. Naruto, we trust you. You have the power to unite them, but if Konoha falls, it's all pointless. Ino nodded. We can always return. The question is, how do we find a stable rift back, and how do we get help here when we're gone? Naruto exhaled. Our priority is saving the shinobi world. If the corrupted monarch's forces pour through, we have to defend it. He turned to the dragons. Listen, I need you to rally whoever still resists the corrupted one. Can you do that without me? The massive dragon lowered its head, as if acknowledging the request. The smaller one nudged Naruto's leg, letting out a plaintive growl. Naruto's chest squeezed with a pang of sadness. Leaving them behind felt wrong, but he had no choice. He forced a determined smile. I'll come back. We'll free this realm, I promise. Reaching out, he let a wave of draconic chakra flow into the large dragon, establishing a stronger link of vow between monarch and subject. A faint hum filled the air. The beast roared softly, seeming to understand. Then, its eyes flicked to the smaller wounded dragon. Gently, it nudged the younger creature forward. A wave of sentiment passed between them, almost like parental guidance. Sakura's eyes widened. Is it telling the smaller one to go with us? Ino tilted her head. Bringing a real dragon back to Konoha? That's sure to cause a stir. Naruto rested a hand on the smaller dragon's neck. It crooned, trusting him completely. All right, he said softly, you're with us. We'll protect each other. A forced return. The big dragon raised its head to the crimson sky, unleashing a thunderous roar. The swirling clouds churned, lightning dancing in arcs. Naruto felt the realm's energy shift again, like the temple's magic, but broader in scope. A distortion rippled, forming a nascent portal through which they could return to the shinobi world. Sakura swallowed. This might be our only shot. Ino gripped Naruto's arm. Let's go, quickly. With reluctance, Naruto turned one last time to the guardian dragon. Hold out until I come back. We'll end the corrupted monarch's reign for both our worlds. The dragon bowed its massive head in solemn farewell. Then, with the wounded dragon at their side, Naruto and the two kunoichis stepped into the swirling light. In a flash, the canyon and its lonely sentinel vanished. Konoha. Same evening they tumbled onto grass under a moonlit sky, gasping. The air felt tangibly different, lighter, lacking the choking heaviness of the dragon realm. Nighttime insects chirped. Trees rustled softly. For a moment, a wave of relief coursed through them. Home. But that relief vanished fast. Alarms blared in the distance. Orange glows dotted the horizon. Small fires. Shinobi flitted across rooftops, silhouettes cast against the moon. Sakura's heart sank. We're too late? Ino's face paled. The messenger said multiple rifts were opening. Could the invasion have already begun? Naruto clenched his fists, surveying the chaotic skyline. We have to find Tsunade. The others, we'll fight them off. A weak growl made him turn. The wounded dragon had come through, collapsing on the grass. It looked around, nostrils flaring at the strange new environment. It must have sensed the tension. It rose shakily to its feet, ready to defend. Sakura bit her lip. Bringing a dragon into the village in chaos, that'll be interesting. Naruto managed a grim smirk. Better to have it with us than abandoned. Let's move. Village perimeter. Immediate threat, they ran through side streets to avoid panicking villagers, the dragon hobbling behind. As they neared Konoha's walls, the stench of battle hit them, scorched earth, smoke, and thick tension. Suddenly, a shriek overhead. A smaller draconic beast swooped down from a newly formed rift above the village gate, spitting black fire. Shinobi shouted, scattering. Naruto reacted on instinct. He formed a shadow clone that soared up on a swirl of chakra, smashing the creature midair with a blazing Rasengan. It crashed in a tangle of wings. Sakura and Ino joined the fray at the gate, providing backup to the beleaguered ninja. Dozens of scaly invaders crawled through a swirling tear in the sky, clawing at the wall, slashing at defenders. Amid the confusion, Naruto spotted Hinata shielding a group of civilians behind some makeshift barricades, her Byakugan active. She hammered a beast with a pinpoint gentle step, sending it sprawling. Relief flooded him at the sight of her alive. Hinata! Naruto yelled, weaving through the chaos. She turned, eyes widening. Naruto-kun! Joy lit her face, then confusion as she noticed the battered dragon at his side. But there was no time for explanations. Another wave of creatures screeched overhead. Hinata mustered a fierce stance. We have to protect the gate. They're pouring in faster than we can seal the rift. Naruto's gaze flicked to the swirling tear. I can try to close it like before, but these beasts won't let up. Sakura and Ino rushed to reinforce the perimeter. The smaller dragon let out a raspy roar, lumbering forward to swipe an attacker that got too close. Konoha's defenders flinched at first, unsure if it was friend or foe, until they saw it fighting alongside Naruto. In the distance, Naruto glimpsed Tsunade and Kakashi directing squads of shinobi to funnel civilians to safety. Explosions of ninjutsu flared across the night. It felt like a miniature war zone. Locking down the rift, Naruto dashed to a vantage point atop the wall. With Hinata beside him, he formed a crosshand seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A half-dozen clones spread out, each preparing a barrier formula reminiscent of the allied shinobi war barrier techniques. Hinata read the movements, quickly jumping in to add her chakra control. Her Byakugan aided in pinpointing the exact edges of the rift's disturbance. We'll need to enclose the entire tear at once, she instructed. Otherwise, more can slip through. Bracing themselves, they funneled chakra into swirling lines that formed a net of shimmering seals. Corrupted dragons clawed at the net from within, but each strike fizzled against the barrier's growing strength. The net closed in, contracting around the tear. Meanwhile, on the ground, Sakura, Ino, and the wounded dragon provided cover. The roiling tear flickered, resisting. A final monstrous shriek erupted. Some gargantuan shape tried to push through from the other side, but the barrier forced it back. With a thunderous crack, the rift sealed, leaving only scorched air behind. A collective cheer rose from the defending shinobi. For a breath, the assault paused. The beasts that had come through were either slain or subdued. Smoke drifted across the moonlit rubble, revealing haggard faces of the villagers and ninjas. Naruto dropped to the ground, panting. Hinata followed, steadying him with a gentle hand. You did it, she murmured, relief shining in her eyes. He managed a small nod. We all did. Tsunade and Kakashi hurried over, the Hokage's face etched with anger and worry. Naruto, where the hell have you been? She demanded. But the moment she saw the battered dragon by his side, her eyes widened. What? Naruto lifted a weary hand. Long story, Bachan. Let's just say we found a potential ally in the dragon realm, and we have bigger problems. Kakashi's gaze flicked to the limp draconic invaders. We nearly lost the main gate. If more rifts open simultaneously, we're in real trouble. Sakura stepped forward, wiping sweat from her brow. The corrupted monarch's forces are mobilizing. This was just a taste. A hush fell, a sense of imminent dread overshadowing the small victory. People whispered among themselves, glancing at the wounded dragon that stood with Naruto. Its presence alone hinted that not all dragons sought Konoha's destruction. Tsunade's expression hardened. Come. We regroup, treat the wounded, then plan our next move. Everyone back to the command center. Command center. Later that night, Konoha's administrative building bustled with medics, scouts, and squad leaders. Maps of the village perimeter and the fire country lay spread on every table. Emergency lanterns flickered, illuminating the frantic atmosphere. Naruto, Sakura, Ino, and Hinata squeezed into Tsunade's makeshift command room. Shikamaru was already there, hastily drafting strategies. Sasuke leaned against the wall, arms folded. When he saw Naruto return with a living dragon, his Sharingan flared in disbelief, but he said nothing immediately. Tsunade hammered the desk. We can't keep plugging holes in the dam. If the corrupted monarch can open rifts anywhere, we're always reacting. Naruto took a breath, stepping forward. We have a lead. We found an ancient temple in the Dragon Realm, a place tied to the power of the Dragon Monarch. I'm that monarch, somehow. If we can secure more of those temples or altars, we might cut off his corruption at the source. Sasuke's gaze sharpened. Then your plan is to go back and gather allies? Meanwhile, our world is under siege. Shikamaru stroked his chin thoughtfully. We need a split approach. Some of us defend here, sealing any rifts that open. Others take the fight to the Dragon Realm, forging alliances or destroying the corrupted monarch's route before he can mass a full invasion. Tsunade glanced at the battered dragon resting in a corner, guarded by a few cautious Anbu. And that creature? You trust it? Naruto nodded without hesitation. It's proven itself. It fought alongside us in that realm, nearly died protecting me. It can guide us and help communicate with other dragons. At that, the smaller dragon let out a low, apologetic croon, bowing its head. Even the weary Anbu looked less hostile, seeing it clearly pose no threat. Tsunade's lips pressed thin. Fine. But the elders will throw a fit. We'll cross that bridge later. For now, priority is preventing more rifts and saving lives. Sasuke spoke up, meeting Naruto's eyes. We should assemble a strike team to return to the Dragon Realm soon. I'll join you. I've seen enough to believe we can't wait for the enemy's timetable. Naruto's heart steadied, grateful for Sasuke's support, despite their earlier tensions. Right. But we'll need time to recover, gather supplies. This realm hopping isn't easy. Ino stepped in. Count me in. No way I'm letting you have all the fun. Sakura nodded firmly. I'll come too. Another medic can handle the immediate triage here, but you'll need healing out there. Hinata's voice trembled with resolve. I'll help defend Konoha if that's your wish, Naruto-kun. Or go, if you need me in the Dragon Realm. Naruto met her eyes, a tangle of gratitude and concern welling up. We'll decide soon, okay. Right now, let's regroup. Everyone's exhausted. A hush fell over the command room, the flickering lantern casting shadows on each determined face. They had staved off one wave, but the true onslaught was yet to come. The specter of war loomed over them, both in this world and the Dragon Realm. Night's End. A private moment hours later, after triage and planning sessions, Naruto slipped away to a quiet corner of the Hokage Tower. He rested his back against a chilly stone wall, eyes heavy with fatigue. So much had happened he felt battered, physically and emotionally. Soft footsteps approached. He opened his eyes to find Hinata, her long hair swaying in the dim light. She settled beside him, not speaking at first. Just the subtle warmth of her presence eased some of his burden. Naruto-kun, she said finally, voice low, this is bigger than any threat we've faced. You're carrying all of it on your shoulders again. Don't forget, you have people who love you, who'll share the load. He turned to her, the raw sincerity in her pale eyes hitting him like a wave. The memory of their kiss under the cherry blossoms replayed in his mind, how that quiet moment anchored him. Now, in the aftermath of chaos, he found himself craving that warmth again. He gently brushed a knuckle along her cheek. Thank you, he murmured, for always believing in me. Hinata's cheeks flushed, but she met his gaze firmly. Slowly, she leaned in, pressing her lips to his in a soft, lingering kiss. He breathed her in, letting the tension slip from his shoulders for that brief instant. When they parted, a shy smile curved her lips. He felt his heart lighten, even knowing storms still brewed. In that moment, he realized how crucial these connections were. Sakura, Ino, Hinata, and even the subtle approval from Sasuke, Gaara, and others. It wasn't just about unstoppable power, it was about who fought beside him. It's not just me anymore, he whispered, half to himself, half to Hinata. We'll face the corrupted monarch together. Her eyes glistened with unwavering devotion. Yes, we will. The tower's corridors stretched silent around them, the night inching toward dawn. A new day awaited, one that promised battles, heartbreak, and possibly triumph. But for these few minutes, they held onto each other, anchoring themselves against the shadows of war closing in. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5. Reign of the Dragon King. Late morning. Konoha's command center. Sunlight broke through the windows, illuminating weary faces gathered around the circular table. A map of the shinobi world covered its surface, crisscrossed with hastily drawn markings. Dotted lines indicated recent rifts, and red ink circled the worst-hit areas. Low murmurs filled the room. Naruto stood at one corner, arms folded, eyes unwavering. Next to him were Sakura, Ino, and Hinata, each looking more determined than ever. Tsunade presided over the meeting, Kakashi at her shoulder, while Sasuke, Shikamaru, and Gaara stood on the opposite side. A few clan heads and Jonin ringed the perimeter, waiting for instructions. Tsunade slammed a palm onto the table. Another rift opened at the southern border near Tanzaku town. We lost contact with an entire scouting unit. Word is they're under attack by draconic creatures. A hush fell. Shikamaru spoke up, voice laced with fatigue. We can't spread our forces too thin. The corrupted monarch's tactics are to keep us chasing rifts all over the continent. Gaara nodded gravely. Sunagaker faces the same issue, multiple small rifts diverting our attention. This has to be a lead up to something bigger. Naruto exhaled, steeling himself. He recalled the vow he'd made to the dragons in their own realm, to halt this invasion at the source. We need to take the fight to the corrupted monarch. Sasuke's Rinnegan flickered. Agreed. The sooner we strike, the less chance he has to amass his armies here. Tsunade's expression darkened. Right now, you four, she gestured to Naruto, Sakura, Ino, and Sasuke, are our best bet for a direct incursion into the dragon realm. The rest of us will hold the fort in case the monarch tries a large-scale push. A murmured assent rippled around the table. Though doubt lingered in some eyes, no one voiced dissent. They'd seen firsthand Naruto's link to the dragons, how he'd returned with an ally from that realm. Naruto squared his shoulders. I'll gather a strike team and open a portal back. Once I confront the corrupted monarch, we can break his hold on these rifts. Hinata stepped forward, eyes resolute. I want to go. Her words hung in the air. Sakura and Ino exchanged a look, remembering Hinata's unwavering support. Sasuke eyed her calmly, weighing her Byakugan's value. Naruto's voice softened. Hinata, it's going to be dangerous. She nodded, determined. I know. But if you're challenging the corrupted monarch, you'll need all the help you can get. A flicker of concern passed through Tsunade's gaze, but she relented. Fine. 5-person team. It's settled. We'll dispatch an elite group: Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Ino, and Hinata to strike at the corrupted monarch. Everyone else, fortify Konoha and allied nations. Any questions? Silence answered. The choice was made. Early afternoon, training grounds. They needed to prepare for dimension travel yet again, but this time with a clear plan. Naruto and the others assembled in a wide clearing. Stands of tall pines ringed the area, gently swaying in the breeze. The wounded dragon Naruto's new ally rested nearby, wrapped in fresh bandages. Its recovery had been slow but steady, aided by medical nin from Konoha who, under Tsunade's watchful eye, had begrudgingly agreed to help once they realized it fought on Naruto's side. Sasuke checked his gear, eyes drifting to the creature. So you're sure it can open a portal back? Naruto placed a hand on the dragon's flank, feeling the thrum of its draconic chakra. Partially. We also have the power we got from that temple site. If I sync with it, we might recreate the rift. Last time, it tore open spontaneously, but now, I think we can control it. Sakura approached, scanning the dragon's condition. It's still not fully healed. If we get stuck in the dragon realm and face the corrupted monarch's minions, can it fight? Naruto exhaled. We'll have to protect it. But it's our guide. Without it, finding the monarch's stronghold might take too long. Hinata tested her kunai holster, glancing at the rest of the team. We've got no other choice. Ino cracked her knuckles, nerves crackling beneath her confident facade. Then let's do this. No point in waiting for them to bring the war to us. A hush fell as Naruto stepped into the center of the clearing, the dragon beside him. He closed his eyes, summoning the memory of the temple's seal. The power coiled in his chest, part Kyuubi's chakra, part draconic aura. With a deep breath, he channeled it outward. Waves of dark energy rippled from him, swirling in a circle. Grass and leaves fluttered in the sudden breeze, and the air crackled with static. Then the wounded dragon added its own resonant call, a low rumbling that vibrated the clearing. Slowly, a vortex of shimmering violet light spiraled open in the air. The portal. Sasuke's eyes widened slightly. You did it. Naruto clenched his fists, feeling the strain. Let's move before it closes. Moments later, entering the dragon realm. One by one, they stepped through the portal and emerged onto a jagged plateau under crimson skies. The swirling red sun hung overhead, bathing the land in eerie half-light. The wind smelled of ash and burning metal. Sakura breathed uneasily. This place hasn't gotten any friendlier. The battered dragon let out a soft growl of recognition. It took a few tentative steps on the cracked ground, glancing toward the horizon as if searching for something. Ino scanned the surroundings. If we can find that big guardian dragon you talked about, maybe it can lead us to the corrupted monarch's base. Naruto nodded. Last time, it stayed behind near the temple. Let's see if we can pick up the trail. They moved as a tight formation, senses on high alert. Sasuke walked slightly ahead, Rinnegan scanning for hidden threats. Hinata trailed near Naruto, Byakugan active. Sakura and Ino flanked the wounded dragon, ensuring no ambushes caught it off guard. The terrain was even more ravaged than before: crumbling cliffs, blackened spires, and swirling dust devils. Occasionally, they glimpsed shapes flitting across the sky, dragons or twisted abominations lost to corruption. Each time, the team tensed, ready to fight. But none attacked, not yet. Late afternoon, ruined temple site revisited. After winding through canyons and ascending a ridge of shattered stone, they reached the place of Naruto's previous trial, the once proud temple, now in further disrepair. Portions of the roof had collapsed, pillars leaning precariously. Their approach stirred a faint roar echoing from within. With cautious steps, they moved through the crumbled arches into the courtyard. A sudden surge of massive wings. The large guardian dragon, the same one that had submitted to Naruto's dominion, lurched into view. Deep scars etched its obsidian scales, and it bore fresh wounds as well. Naruto's heart twisted. It's hurt. Sakura hurried forward, hands glowing with healing chakra. Hold still, big guy. The dragon exhaled a low rumble, sinking to its haunches, allowing Sakura to tend its injuries. Ino quickly joined, scanning for corruption. The wounded dragon at Naruto's side let out a distressed call, nudging its larger kin's flank. Naruto knelt near the massive dragon's head, feeling a wave of sorrow emanate from it. Through their connection, he gleaned scattered impressions. A swarm of dark creatures attacking. A final stand at the temple's gate. The corrupted monarch's presence looming beyond the horizon, gathering an army. Sasuke's voice was grim. The monarch must have known we'd return. He's hitting every potential ally. Hinata pressed a hand to her chest, upset. This realm is collapsing under his invasion. Gently, the guardian dragon lifted its head and stared Naruto in the eye. A flood of images washed into him. A dark citadel rising from jagged plains, an army of corrupted dragons and robed foot soldiers, and at their center a horned figure exuding raw malice. Naruto swallowed. The corrupted monarch's fortress, it's real, not far from here. A place called the Obsidian Citadel. His teammates exchanged grim looks. Ino helped Sakura bandage the big dragon's worst wounds, though it would need rest to fully recover. Naruto turned to them, resolve hardening. We'll go. We can't let him keep picking off these dragons. This ends now. Dusk. March toward the Obsidian Citadel. They left the temple behind, guided by the guardian dragon's mental impressions and the wounded dragon's sense of direction. The guardian dragon, though injured, insisted on walking with them, each step shaking the ground. It might not be able to fight at full strength, but its presence alone was a beacon to any uncorrupted drakes still roaming. The horizon darkened as swirling red clouds thickened, lit by occasional forks of crimson lightning. In the distance, they glimpsed a fortress carved from black stone. Spires jutted into the boiling sky, and storms raged overhead. Sasuke exhaled, eyes narrowed. It reeks of malevolent chakra. The entire citadel is laced with the monarch's corruption. Hinata's Byakugan pulsed. I see, hundreds of these robed figures patrolling the walls. And more dragons inside twisted by darkness. Naruto's chest tightened. This was a full-blown fortress, not a mere hideout. We'll do what we can. Our goal. Get to the monarch. Cut off the head of the snake. Ino adjusted her headband. We're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. That's your plan. Sakura let out a soft laugh, though tension sharpened her voice. When has Naruto's plan ever been any different? A small grin tugged at Naruto's lips. We've beaten worse odds. They pressed on, forging a path through jagged canyons. Draconic roars echoed from the citadel. The final conflict loomed, every step bringing them closer to the enemy's stronghold. Nightfall. The assault on the citadel. A storm raged by the time they reached the citadel's outer walls, black stone towering hundreds of feet high, lit by eerie braziers of dark fire. The robed sentinels on the ramparts spotted them instantly, sounding a harsh horn that reverberated through the night. Corrupted dragons swooped down from balconies, shrieking. Sasuke and Hinata sprang into action, launching coordinated strikes. Sasuke's Chidori hissed with crackling energy, slicing through scaled wings, while Hinata's gentle step hammered the beasts out of the sky. At ground level, Sakura and Ino battered the fortress gates. Ino used mind transfer illusions to disorient the defenders, while Sakura's chakra-laced punches shattered the gate's iron supports. Naruto led the dragons forward, his smaller wounded ally and the larger guardian. The big one unleashed a torrent of black flames, scattering robed foes like leaves. The fortress trembled under the combined might of a determined shinobi team and their monstrous allies. But the defenders were legion. A new wave of robed soldiers poured out, each crackling with corrupted draconic chakra. They brandished scythes or staves wreathed in black flame. Their chanting rose in the howling wind, intensifying the storm overhead. Naruto formed a barrage of shadow clones, each brandishing a swirling Rasengan infused with the draconic aura. They slammed into the lines of cult-like soldiers, explosions of black and blue chakra lighting the night. Sasuke struck with blazing Chidori spears, cutting swaths through the enemy. Still, the fortress teemed with resistance. Naruto realized they could fight for hours out here, losing precious strength. They needed to punch through to the corrupted monarch. In a daring push, Naruto channeled the full power of his scaled form, black scales covering his arms and shoulders, golden eyes alight. Let's go, he roared, driving Rasengan blasts into the gates. With Sakura and Ino hammering from the other side, the massive doors finally gave way. Iron and stone collapsed inward, revealing a courtyard swarming with twisted dragonkin. Above them, ramparts bristled with archers hurling spears of black flame. Lightning streaked the crimson sky. Keep moving, Sasuke shouted, slicing through defenders with sizzling arcs of lightning. They surged into the courtyard. The large guardian dragon bellowed, tail smashing aside an entire squad of robed cultists. The smaller dragon clung close to Naruto, spewing bursts of scorching breath whenever an enemy drew too near. Hinata's voice rang out, "Naruto-kun, up there." She pointed to a central spire towering above the citadel. A malignant aura radiated from its peak. Naruto nodded, eyes fixed on that spire. The monarch's seat of power. Let's end this. Ascending the spire, internal halls. As they pushed deeper, a labyrinth of corridors awaited, gargoyle-like dragon statues looming overhead, torches casting flickering shadows. Corrupted dragons prowled the halls, snarling, each wave challenging the team's stamina. Sakura knelt by the wounded guardian dragon near the base of the main staircase. It's losing too much blood. It can't climb any further. Ino panted, bruised from a recent skirmish. We can't stop here, but if the dragon stays, it'll get swarmed. Sasuke scanned the area. I'll leave a shadow clone to guard it. My Rinnegan can sense if the real me is needed. Naruto cupped the large dragon's muzzle, voice thick with regret. You've done enough. Please rest here, keep the path clear. The dragon rumbled, pressing its forehead gently to Naruto's chest. A pulse of shared understanding passed between them. Then it lay down, tail coiled, ready to defend the corridor. The smaller dragon, still battered but more mobile, nudged Naruto's arm. It insisted on following. Naruto offered a brief smile. All right, let's go. And so they ascended the winding steps, each landing bringing them closer to the oppressive aura that made their hearts pound. The spire's apex, throne of the corrupted monarch. At last, they emerged onto a vast, open platform near the citadel's peak. The howling wind whipped at them, flickers of lightning illuminating a high-vaulted ceiling of swirling red clouds. Gargantuan statues of twisted dragons lined the circular arena, each flickering with dark energy. In the center, perched on a raised dais of obsidian, sat the corrupted monarch. Horns curved from his temple, golden eyes glowing with malice. Shadowy tendrils coiled around him like living serpents. The robed figure who'd tormented Naruto hovered at his side, battered but alive. A dreadful hush fell as the monarch rose, each step echoing across the stone floor. His voice was a guttural hiss that resonated in the walls. "You dare invade my domain, child." Naruto stepped forward, scales flaring. "You're done terrorizing the shinobi world. Your corruption ends here." Laughter, cold and mocking. "Foolish. You know nothing of the power I wield. The dragons are mine to command, and soon, your pitiful realm will bow as well." Sasuke's Sharingan blazed. "We've heard enough." The monarch flicked a clawed hand. Instantly, the robed messenger lunged, black lightning crackling around him. Naruto's team spread out, Sakura and Ino intercepting the messenger, while Naruto and Sasuke focused on the monarch. Hinata stuck close to Naruto, eyes scanning for an opening. The wounded dragon hissed at the monarch, spitting embers of defiance. Chaos erupted. The robed figure engaged Sakura and Ino in a flurry of conjured weapons and illusions. Sakura's fists shattered conjured blades, and Ino wove illusions to disrupt the attacker's senses. Yet the messenger proved slippery, warping around the platform in bursts of black wind. Meanwhile, Sasuke and Naruto charged the corrupted monarch head-on. Sasuke's Chidori met a wall of living shadow that crackled with dark energy. Naruto unleashed wave after wave of draconic Rasengan, each impact sending sparks of black flame surging across the dais. The monarch roared, generating a vortex of dark power that forced them back. Lightning flashed overhead, revealing twisted forms of half-corrupted dragons circling the spire, shrieking in frenzy. The entire citadel quaked under the magnitude of clashing energies. Clash of Titans. Naruto's paw. Naruto's heart pounded as he slid back from the monarch's counterattack, boots scraping across obsidian. The monstrous figure towered over him, wreathed in roiling shadows. Rage and defiance coursed through Naruto's veins, fueling the black scales that now covered his torso and arms in a partial draconic transformation. "You're just a parasite," Naruto snarled. "These dragons never chose you." The monarch's golden eyes narrowed. "I bent them to my will. And I will bend you, or break you." Shadowy tendrils lashed out. Naruto summoned a swirl of clones, each weaving around the tendrils, hurling Rasengan blasts. The monarch erupted with black lightning, annihilating a dozen clones in a single stroke. Naruto dove low, sliding under a savage claw swipe, then sprang up with a monstrous uppercut fueled by Kyuubi's chakra layered with draconic aura. A thunderous impact rocked the platform. The monarch staggered, but he snarled, swinging a backhand that sent Naruto crashing into a carved dragon statue. Stone shards rained down. Gasping, Naruto forced himself up, ignoring the pain. "I won't give in to you." Across the dais, Sasuke pressed his advantage, lightning dancing around his blade. He slashed at the monarch's flank, forcing the dark tyrant to split attention. But the monarch retaliated with a gout of black flame that pinned Sasuke behind a pillar. The robed messenger, seeing an opening, launched a volley of dark lances at Sakura and Ino. Sakura battered them aside with chakra-enhanced strikes, while Ino found a gap to land a mind-body disruption. The messenger froze, eyes blank for half a heartbeat. Then a wave of corrupt energy shattered Ino's hold, sending her reeling. Sakura gritted her teeth, sprinting in with a powered punch that connected with the messenger's chest. A bone-crunching impact rang out, hurling the enemy across the platform. Hinata hovered near Naruto, eyes locked on the monarch. She darted in, deflecting a stray tendril with a palm thrust. The small dragon spat flames to shield her flank. Rising fury, Naruto ascends. As the monarch battled, he began chanting guttural words that reverberated in the storm. The swirling skies darkened further, rifts tearing open overhead. More corrupted dragons began spilling through, screeching. The entire dimension quaked, as though on the brink of collapse. Naruto's stomach turned. If the monarch unleashed a full horde here, the shinobi world would be next. Enough was enough. Closing his eyes, he reached deep, beyond the fear and anger, to the wellspring of power he'd been balancing. Kurama's chakra flared red and fierce, merging with the draconic aura in a swirl of pitch black and glowing orange. His scales glowed brighter, new patches spreading over his arms and face. A swirling pattern of black flame ringed his Rasengan, a halo of combined energies. "That's enough," Naruto roared, voice echoing across the spire. He launched himself at the monarch, weaving around dark tendrils. Each step left cracks in the obsidian floor. The monarch's eyes widened, taken aback by this surge of power. Naruto's first strike landed a direct blow to the monarch's gut, sending tremors rippling through the platform. A wave of black lightning lashed back, raking Naruto's side, drawing blood. He hissed in pain but refused to relent. Summoning a swirling, massive Rasengan coated in black draconic flame, he slammed it into the monarch's chest. A deafening explosion tore through the spire, shaking the entire citadel. The monarch staggered, smoke streaming from his scorched robes and scales. Rage distorted his features. "How dare you, insignificant!" he spat, preparing another torrent of shadow. Sakura and Ino seized the moment, assaulting the robed messenger with a coordinated strike. Sakura's chakra punch from one side, Ino's mind transfer from the other, forcing the messenger off balance. Sasuke emerged, raising his blade, crackling with a Chidori current. He drove it through the messenger's chest in a decisive blow. The figure let out a strangled cry, black ooze dripping from the wound. The messenger's eyes rolled back as it collapsed, twitching. "My master, it never finished." The body disintegrated into ash, carried away by the raging wind. With the messenger gone, the monarch realized his aide's demise, a flicker of fury crossing his twisted features. He bellowed, swirling the storm's energies into a final monstrous spell. Tendrils of black flame erupted from the floor, forming a dragon-shaped spectral form around the corrupted monarch. It roared, echoing with unholy power, ready to consume Naruto and the others in one cataclysmic wave. The final stand. Naruto pressed a trembling hand to his chest, feeling the synergy of the Kyuubi and the dragon monarch's soul. He locked eyes with his friends Sasuke, Sakura, Ino, and Hinata, each battered but unyielding. The smaller dragon at his side snarled defiantly, battered wings flared. "Everyone, lend me what chakra you can," Naruto shouted over the howling wind. Without hesitation, they each channeled their power. Sasuke's Rinnegan flared, sharing a fraction of his energy. Sakura, Ino, and Hinata placed hands on Naruto's back, pouring in their chakra reserves. Even the small dragon let out a low rumble, funneling draconic essence into him. Naruto felt the surge like a tidal wave, his body blazing with combined power. Scales grew more pronounced, aura swirling in a helix of orange, black, and faint violet. Gold spark lit his eyes, a reflection of the unstoppable will that defined him. The corrupted monarch snarled, sending that massive, spectral dragon lunging forward. Dark flames roared, the shockwave peeling chunks of stone from the spire. Naruto inhaled, forging the largest Rasengan he'd ever formed, 10 times bigger than his typical giant Rasengan, crackling with black draconic flame at its core. Tendrils of orange and violet streaked through it, representing each ally's contribution. "Take this dragon monarch Rasengan." He hurled himself into the heart of the monstrous attack. The spectral dragon collided with his swirling sphere in a clash that dimmed the entire realm. For a moment, all was silent. Then a colossal detonation tore the sky asunder. A wave of raw power rocketed outward, obliterating the spectral form. The corrupted monarch roared in agony, overshadowed by a flood of swirling energies that cascaded over the spire, shattering statues and peeling away black corruption. The fortress quaked, its stone walls cracking under the cataclysmic force. Naruto forced the Rasengan deeper, pushing through the monarch's defenses until it slammed directly against his chest. There was a final, deafening explosion of light and then silence. The storm above seemed to freeze, the swirling red clouds halting mid-motion. Aftermath. Naruto's paw. He collapsed to one knee, chest heaving. Smoke curled from his clothes, scales receding from his skin. The spire floor was scorched, chunks of obsidian scattered. Sasuke, Sakura, Ino, and Hinata were thrown back by the shockwave, each slowly picking themselves up. The corrupted monarch lay slumped at the center of the dais, his horned crown cracked. Shadowy tendrils flickered in and out, as if the corruption was unraveling. He let out a final, ragged breath, golden eyes dimming. No, I rule this, he tried to speak, but the words died in his throat. A final wave of blackness seeped away from him, dissolving into the air. Then his body disintegrated into ash, scattered by the wind. Sakura coughed, stumbling over to Naruto. You did it. He nodded shakily, letting her help him stand. The raging storm above began to dissipate, swirling clouds retreating. The oppressive aura that had choked the realm lifted. Hinata and Ino rushed in, relief etched on their faces. Sasuke approached more slowly, eyes scanning for any lingering threat. None emerged. In the distance, the corrupted dragons turned docile. Some collapsed, freed from the monarch's hold. Others fled, shrieking into the night. The robed remnants, scattered in confusion, offered no further resistance. Final moments in the dragon realm. The battered guardian dragon from below forced its way up the spire, ignoring its injuries. It gazed upon the dais, then roared a clear, triumphant note that reverberated across the citadel. Uncorrupted dragons on the horizon answered, an echoing chorus. The realm was alive again, no longer under the iron grip of the corrupted monarch. Naruto slumped against the guardian's massive flank. Despite the exhaustion, a small, victorious smile tugged at his lips. We promised, we'd free this place, he murmured to the dragon. Sakura gently placed a hand on his shoulder, offering healing chakra. Don't keel over now, dummy. Ino flopped onto a chunk of broken stone, letting out a shaky laugh. We just toppled a monarch of an entire dimension. No big deal, right? Hinata knelt beside Naruto, eyes shining with tears of relief. She pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. I'm so glad, you're all right. Sasuke glanced over the ruined fortress. We should see if the rifts in our world are closing. The monarch's death may have severed his link. Naruto nodded. Let's find out. Back to the shinobi world, Dawn. Guided by the dragons, the group retraced their steps out of the citadel. The smaller wounded dragon nuzzled Naruto in farewell, as if to say it would stay in its home realm now that it was safe. The large guardian accompanied them to a stable vantage point. Once again, Naruto summoned the draconic energy to form a portal. The dragons roared their parting salutes, wings spread wide. One by one, Naruto's team stepped into the vortex. Sakura and Ino, arms still laced with minor wounds. Sasuke calmly stoic. Hinata supporting Naruto's wobbly figure. The last glimpse Naruto had was of the guardian dragon standing tall in the citadel's remains, the sky clearing overhead. And then, with a burst of swirling violet light, they were gone. Konoha's outskirts. Sunrise they emerged onto dewy grass bathed in soft morning light. The air smelled of fresh rain, utterly different from the sulfur and ash of the dragon realm. Shinobi on patrol gaped at the returning team. Word spread quickly, and soon Tsunade, Kakashi, Shikamaru, and others converged on the clearing, relief evident on their faces. A handful of tears glistened in Tsunade's eyes she'd never admitted, but they were there. You're back, she said bluntly, stepping toward them. Naruto gave a weak grin, nearly collapsing from fatigue. Sasuke caught his arm, propping him up. It's done, Sasuke said. We destroyed the corrupted monarch. Tsunade's breath hitched. Are you sure? Sakura nodded wearily. His fortress is in ruins. The corruption is breaking apart. Kakashi peered at them with approval. And the rifts? As if on cue, the barrier squad near the village gates reported that the tears in reality had all but vanished. No new sightings. Shinobi stationed across the continent sent word via messenger hawks rifts were collapsing everywhere. A cheer rippled through the crowd. Some wept with joy, others pounded fists in triumph. Tsunade exhaled a shaky breath, a grateful smile tugging at her lips. You've saved us again. Epilogue. A new dawn, hints of tomorrow. 2 days passed in a blur of celebration, relief, and rebuilding. The allied nations rejoiced. No more dragon invasions, no more tears in the sky. What remained were scattered pockets of leftover creatures, either fleeing or turning docile without the monarch's corruption. Naruto and his friends took a well-deserved rest. Medics fussed over their burns and bruises, ensuring they recovered fully. Life in Konoha began to settle, though the wariness lingered. People had witnessed rifts tear open their skies, and such scars didn't vanish overnight. Finally, on a bright, cloudless morning, Naruto found himself on the Hokage monument, gazing down at the bustling village. Sakura, Ino, and Hinata joined him, each wearing quieter smiles than usual. The storm had passed, but their relationships complicated as they had only grown deeper. Hinata stood close, fingers tentatively laced through his. "How are you feeling?" He squeezed her hand, the warmth of the sun on his face. "Better, just thinking about the dragons. I hope they're rebuilding." Sakura wrapped an arm around his shoulder on the other side, leaning into him. "We'll check on them someday, won't we?" Naruto chuckled, leaning his head against hers. "Count on it. I made a promise." Ino propped herself against the rocky ledge, a playful glint in her eye. "Try not to vanish for too long. Konoha still needs its big hero." She slid a lingering glance his way, recalling the kisses and flirtations they'd shared. Sakura offered a light swat at Ino's arm, but couldn't hide a smile. "We all need him, pig." They laughed softly, tension replaced by a sense of camaraderie and something more. The harem dynamic was unorthodox, but their bonds were stronger than petty jealousy. Each had come to see a piece of themselves reflected in Naruto's unstoppable heart. Sasuke approached behind them, arms folded. "Don't get too comfortable. The next threat might be around the corner." Naruto turned with a grin. "We'll handle it, together." Sasuke huffed, but a faint smirk touched his lips. We always do." Near the village gates, Tsunade, Kakashi, and Shikamaru finished up final reports on the corrupted monarch's defeat. Word spread that the dragon monarch Naruto had saved both realms from annihilation. Fables would be told for years to come. Yet, in the hush of the monument, Naruto gazed at the horizon. The promise of tomorrow stretched before him: new missions, new dangers, and possibly new wonders in the dragon realm. But for now, he savored the peace he'd fought so hard to win. Konoha's future was bright. Dragons might someday roam the skies as allies, bridging two worlds once locked in conflict. The shinobi nations, bolstered by this victory, stood united against any new threat. And in the center of it all, Naruto Uzumaki, Dragon Monarch, hero of two realms, smiled at the village that had once scorned him but now embraced him with unwavering faith. Surrounded by friends and the women who loved him, he felt complete. As the sun rose higher, he lifted a hand to shield his eyes from the brilliant light. A final echo of draconic power rumbled in his chest, a gentle reminder that the story was far from over. There would be more challenges, more revelations. But for now, he and his loved ones could rest, hearts brimming with hope. End.